Hey guys, welcome to Box Office Addict. I am Pat, your host, and I run the channel Please Rewind. And this is the first official titled episode of Box Office Addict. Before this, we just called it the Weekend Box Office. We would report on what was happening with the weekend numbers and talk about it in the chat. If some of you don't know the format of the show, it's kind of an interactive podcast show. Like, it's a show where I do talk about the box office, I do look at the numbers, but it's not your typical 10 to 20 minute long YouTube video. It's more of a radio show that's an hour, if not longer, with certain episodes. Although I'm going to try to keep it shorter, a little under an hour from now on, if I can. Sometimes you go on tangents. But the whole idea is to get an overall feeling of the box office and how we feel about movies right now, and to talk about it with everyone. Everyone that wants to listen to it, everyone who has an opinion on something. And we really come to a lot of interesting points week to week with that. And I think down the road, if we can grow this up... can you guys hear me okay, by the way? But if we can build this up, I think we can have a really awesome chat. And a really good group of people here, then we can all figure this out together. Because I don't know everything about the box office. I know as much as I can from doing research on Variety, or with Hollywood Reporter, or looking at Deadline, or... Forbes, just looking at every source I can find. But I don't know everything. You guys give me a lot of information. You guys tell me a lot about what's going on. So it's really about communication. It's like we can do this all together. And I really like that about it, even though the majority of the show is me just talking way too much. Despite me thinking myself that I'm loquacious, it might just be that I enjoy hearing myself talk too much. Oddly enough, in real life, I don't talk that much. It's only on... I guess, though, if I didn't talk, it'd be dead air, which would be terrible radio. Okay, the audio's fine? Good. All right. Let's jump in. Welcome to Box Office Addict. Everyone who's in the chat, you are part of this clinic. We are all addicts to the box office. We're all got a little bit of an addiction, or you wouldn't be here. You don't come on here just to hear me talk. You come to hear the numbers. That's right. I know what brings you back. Yeah, good job. Good job, Kabooms. Hey, Kabooms, I've really been enjoying your comments on all the videos, man. I read all of them, and I appreciate all the feedback you've been giving me. Or her, I don't know, maybe you're a chick. I'm assuming you're a guy, though. But your comments have been really positive, and I do take the comments to heart on this channel. I'm probably one of the only YouTube channels that actually does take the comments pretty seriously. I do actually look at them all. I don't just look at the ones that I like looking at that compliment me. I look at the negatives, too. So thank you. I want to appreciate that you've been very fair and balanced in all of your, comments lately. Okay, so let's just get into this. Let me look at, how much time we got in here. Okay, we're only about 4 minutes in. I was trying to give a little bit of time so more people could join in, because typically we get this built up pretty big, but I'm doing this earlier than usual. Oh, thank you, Tap and Die. But people have been real. This has kind of been building up, this box office live stream thing, and I'm trying to get the word of mouth out there. But I like to wait till some of you come in, because I know a lot of you like to enjoy this live, and I do think it's a different experience altogether to be here live than it is to catch it after the fact. Because I get if you catch it after the fact, you have to look through and watch the live streams, and maybe you go to points you want to listen to. But when you hear live, there's kind of this energy. We all feed off each other. It's really awesome. I like to get the chat filled up a little bit before I go into the numbers, just so people all get a chance to come in, because they miss out on the early stuff, and the early stuff, some of the better stuff. Because we actually get to the big movies late in the stream. Typically, that's late when we get to number 2 and number 1. Which, thank God, it's finally not number 1 at the box office anymore, so I don't have to title this video It Something again. I can call it something else. Oh, but the number 1 movie, I do have a lot to say about it, because the performance that it did is not bad. It's a decent performance, but it's not great in context to the previous film that it's following, and I think a lot of that has to do with marketing and also reviews, obviously. But I'm going to talk a lot about the number 1 film when I get to it, and how I feel about it, and how... maybe not a review, because I have a review I'm waiting for. Also, guys, that It review is coming, I promise. I promise I'm coming out with my It review. I'm just trying to knock out some underrated classics and favorite films and stuff like that before I get to the It review. Because everyone's done an It review. What could I say that hasn't been said by every normie film critic on YouTube? I'm trying to talk about movies that they don't get a lot of videos made about them, because, you know, all everyone's doing is making like 10, 12 videos on It. And I don't know. I just don't want to be part of that whole bandwagon where everyone's just saying the same stuff all the time. I'm waiting till I come up with something that's unique. A unique take on the whole thing. But that's just me. Let's start at the bottom, though. Let's actually kick into this. Let's kick into this. Let me quit procrastinating. Okay, Atomic Blonde. Let's see if that's made 100 mil yet. Okay, they haven't updated the foreign number, so it may be at 100 million. Excuse me, I'm drinking some coffee, so I might burp here occasionally or take a sip or cough. I don't know. I just got up a little while ago. I had a late night. I'm doing this one a little earlier today just because I like to upload it. I want to upload it a little earlier. I get tired of doing this at 6 or 7 o'clock, and by the time I got finished with it, it would be like, oh man, I haven't eaten in like 3 hours. I need some food. So I'm going to finish this earlier than normal so I can actually go eat dinner and do stuff instead of spending like 3 hours. Although I love being on here with you guys. It's awesome. I just wish the schedule worked out a little bit more. Sundays are very inconvenient, but that's the day that we do this on. Okay, Nutty by Nature, Nut Job 2. 40 mil budget, 40 mil worldwide. They haven't broke even yet. I don't know how much they have in marketing. Like I said, when this first came out, I have no idea why they released this movie in theaters, and even more so why they released it in 4,000 theaters. It's kind of ridiculous. It didn't need to be released. It looks like a straight-to-video movie. I have a review of that film up on my channel, if you want to go check it out. I actually did go see The Nut Job 2, which was one of the weirdest experiences. I went with my nephew, and I remember the whole time he just hated it. And I was like, oh, he doesn't even like this movie. Crap, what am I supposed to do? Like, he's, I'm not liking it, so... It wasn't like the Emoji Movie, though, where I was literally in the theater by myself. Okay, I'll give you guys a preview of it since I've been teasing it for like, what, 2 weeks now? I kind of like it. Okay, that's my tease. I don't hate it, and I don't love it. I kind of like it. So, that's not really a maybe. I don't dislike it, I kind of like it. And it's not that I think it's just okay. There are things I like about it quite a bit. It's just, if I were to talk about it, my criticisms of it, they're so subjective, I have a hard time talking about it. I have a lot of very subjective criticisms, because one thing about the movie bothered me a lot. And it bothered me after seeing it, while I was watching it, and I've talked to only 1 or 2 friends about it. But there's one thing in that movie that really drove me nuts. And in particular, it was the director's influence from another director, and a particular horror icon, that I want to say he borderline ripped off. I'm not going to say that it was that, but like, I kept getting this nagging sense watching the whole movie that I'd seen all this before. And then about halfway through it hit me. I was like, oh yeah, that's right. That's who this is. That's exactly who this is. And that, I couldn't get over that. Now, like I said, that's a pretty subjective thing. But it really got to me. Something with Pennywise in particular really got to me during the movie that I did not, I didn't appreciate. I didn't like it. I didn't think it was a bad choice, but I didn't like it at all. The movie, though, itself, I do like okay. I do think it's alright. So, if you want to know my overall opinion, I think the movie's alright. I don't think it's a bad movie or a great movie. I think everyone's overpraising it like crazy. Like, I don't agree with all the people on YouTube that gave it like 9 or 9.5s and said it was a masterpiece and one of the best horror films in 20 years. And they all cried and got emotional with the kids and stuff like that. I didn't get any of that. I didn't get emotional like that. You know, it's a fine okay crowd pleaser movie though. So it's nothing I can really I'm getting into my review, but I have a review waiting. It's not like I don't have one, but it's just an okay movie. I wasn't disappointed though. Like, I didn't walk out mad or anything. I'm not upset. And people who like the movie, that's fine. I'm not trying to like. I just don't get why so many people acted like it was some modern instant classic. That kind of confused me. I really don't get that. There's a lot of people that are acting like it's one of the best films in years, and I don't get it. I really don't. I'm trying to understand it, but I'm the guy who's making a video about how Unbreakable's that film that nobody loved 17 years ago, so, what do I know? Really? That's why I don't run a studio, because I'd be trying to greenlight films like Unbreakable, and they would be like, oh, we're going to make It, and I'd be like, don't make that. I want to see that It movie. So, yeah, don't come to me about that stuff. I don't know. I'm kind of confused anymore with where film's going. It's not like the industry's dying, but it's like there's something about the creative feeling of Hollywood that's really hollow lately, but particularly the last 2 or 3 years. I've felt this great disconnect. It's like when George Clooney gave that awful smug speech years ago at the Academy Awards where he basically credited the Academy and Hollywood for the civil rights movement and for AIDS and everything. South Park made fun of this. Like, George Clooney just came up and he said, yeah, we've always kind of been disconnected with America, with the people. He's like, I'm proud to be disconnected because, you know, we fought for civil rights and all that. So that's whatever. But I really think Clooney tapped into something there, that arrogance, that like, well, we're disconnected, but we think we have this higher grand importance despite that disconnect with the common moviegoer. And it's funny because that kind of arrogance blinds you if you let it keep happening to the point where you start making films thinking already when you're making them, well, this is a guaranteed hit and this is a bomb. Because, well, we know that this kind of stuff probably does connect with people and this kind of stuff doesn't. But they don't know that. It's like trying to guess the Wall Street numbers. They don't know any of that stuff. They don't know what's going to connect or not. They just assume it. And that's one of the biggest issues. It's the attitude. Not necessarily of the executives, but the whole LA Hollywood crowd. It's this attitude of understanding what people like or not like, but they never really get it. They never really get why people like something or don't like something. Their actual reasoning for it, you hear them talk about why something did well, it's totally off base. Like the It movie, like they're really not going to understand why this movie did well. They're going to completely misinterpret this for all the wrong reasons, and they're going to keep making a bunch of generic horror films with the scary clown, thinking that's what it was. Or people keep trying to recreate the success of the Marvel universe or something like that. Hollywood never see the forest from the trees. It's always just the trees. You know, it's always just, they never really see anything. It's just, oh, look out, and there's all this stuff, and that's how they see it. It's like dollar signs to them, the leaves on the trees. They just see all the dollars, and they don't focus in on what the actual, I don't know, the backbone of that money, where it came from. The backbone of all that coming in. That's why a film like Mother should never get made or released in the mainstream. That's why a film like, you know, there's just a lot of these films that's like, The Dark Tower, you guys know that was gonna bomb. Like, it's just confusing things like that, or going back to Ghostbusters, or anything like that. It's just like, don't do that. Don't make movies. Those should never get past the green lighting stage. That only happens in a world of arrogance where they're disconnected. Like, it's like, don't make that movie. Like, it's, there's so many movies on here right now. It's like, why was this released? Why is Cars 3 out? For merchandise, sure. Why did The Big Sick get this huge, wide release? It's not that kind of movie. Why did it get released during summer with all these blockbusters? You know, why did Logan Lucky even get made? I love Steven Soderbergh. I'm sure the movie's good, but still, this is a bad movie to make. And Soderbergh released it himself and did it outside of the studio system. Did not work out for him. It's just, you know, a lot of crap like that. It's just like, why does this exist? They make a lot of pointless movies now that I don't see a market for. I liked it with maybe a few major caveats. The Bev thing towards the end. It's one of those movies where I walked out sounding like I hated it. My favorite, you know, I'm just kind of ranting. I should have articulated it better. Hey, Your Name, actually, I do love, and I think might come out on my my 2017 top 10 list. Because I was going to include it on my favorite films of 2016, but like you, I did see it in 2017 because it got released here. I didn't see that film last year. So I said, well, technically, I can't say this was one of my favorite films of this year. So if I can say that at the end of the year when I do my top 10 list, there's almost no way Your Name won't be on my list. Like, if not even in the top 5. I think Your Name's a wonderful movie. I have a review for that movie up on the channel, too. It's got spoilers. But I'm absolutely in love with that film. And I'm not even the world's biggest anime fan. I've kind of dropped anime, but that movie's so good. It's so interesting. It's so worth watching, and it has these existential questions that it opens up that are fascinating that I haven't seen in many mainstream films in a long time. It's a very deep film, also being a very entertaining and rewarding experience at the same time. I'm glad it was a huge hit. It made $355 million worldwide. Like, if we go look at Your Name, which we'll just talk about this film for a little bit, because I haven't got to speak about it much on this channel with the box office. This movie passed Spirited Away, which was a benchmark a lot of people thought you couldn't pass, was Miyazaki. Because Spirited Away, now with inflation adjusted, Spirited Away probably did make more than this. But if you go back years ago, Spirited Away made an absurd amount of money in Japan. It was absolutely bonkers. Before it opened up in the States, it made $200 million. So yeah, look, Spirited Away made $264 million there. Oh, it did $10 million in the States. It's really not that bad. Like, for the time, 2003. Although this film should have done a lot better. This is one of the greatest movies ever made. And what a great theatrical experience. I've seen this movie in the theater. I didn't see it when it came out. I saw Howl's Moving Castle when it came out, but I saw this later on a double feature screening with Princess Mononoke, and oh my god, does this film play well in the theater. Terrific theater experience. But, you know, for years, I think Princess Mononoke in this past Titanic or something like that. But for years, everyone said, well, no one outside of Miyazaki can really branch out and catch on with the culture like that. And, yeah, this director did. Very critically acclaimed film. It's got like 95% on Rotten Tomatoes. It got great reviews. It did pretty well in the States, actually. $5 million's not bad for an anime, a foreign release even. But it made $350 million in Japan. I mean, it was a mega, mega hit. Like, they loved it over there. And it has a little bit of a disconnect culturally. It does feel very Japanese, in particular the opening credits and all that. But you can't deny the money that this made. This was a huge, huge hit. It's one of the most successful animated films in a long time, especially traditionally animated. Although they probably did use computers for this film. I'm imagine, because it's a terrific looking film. But they're coming. The dub hasn't come out yet on Blu-ray, I don't think. They did release a theatrical dub of this movie this year. Because before that, if you had to see the subtitled version in some releases. I've seen the subtitled version. I saw that in a screener that a friend had, and then I saw the dub in the theater at one point. But it was very select screenings. But I would love if this film came out on Blu-ray in the States, because I would love to own this movie and watch it. I want to show it to people. I want to show it to my friends, and I really want to show it to my girlfriend. So I think it's a very romantic film, but yeah, they won't release it. But couldn't recommend it more. Your Name's a wonderful movie. Oh yeah, Shin Godzilla is very good. Didn't the guy who worked on Evangelion, didn't he write and direct on that? Ono? Is it his name Ono? I'm not. God, what's his name? I think it's Ono, right? Yeah. Let me Google that real quick. I'm pretty sure it's... Because, yeah, I agree with you. The script was really good. Yeah, Hideko Anno. That's right. Yeah. Yeah, if some of you don't know who this is, which I'm sure in the chat you guys know who he is. He created Neon Genesis Evangelion. Evangelion. I mean, I always say Evangelion. It's Evangelion, though. Sorry about that. He's a classic anime director, writer. And I think he actually worked with Miyazaki back in the day. Yeah, he worked on Nausicaa and the Valley of the Wind. He actually drew those giant-like creatures, titan creatures or whatever in Nausicaa. You can see some of his work there. But terrific. Oh, and he worked on Grave of the Fireflies. Yeah, terrific artist, one of the best out there. And it's pretty crazy. He was actually a perfect pick for Godzilla. What a terrific choice to bring him on. Because not only did he get the scaling of the fights and how to direct it because of his work in animation, he also wrote a terrific screenplay that was very on point with, like someone said in the chat, political satire. And funny, Anno, you know, he actually did the lead voice, dub voice, I believe, for Miyazaki's last film, The Wind Rises. He did the voice acting. Let me double check that to make sure I'm right. I'm pretty sure he did the lead voice in that. Yeah, The Wind Rises. Yeah, he voiced Jiro. Yeah, which is very interesting if you go listen to his voice in that. Very clever casting choice by Miyazaki. All right, let's get back to the box office, man. Already starting with the tangents, not even building up to them. All right, guys, Baby Driver, $224 million worldwide, $34 million budget. I've said it several weeks now. Baby Driver's a hit. Great for Edgar Wright. Blah blah blah. Not much to say. I've already said everything I could say about Baby Driver. I'm not going to add on to that. Dark Tower, $110 million worldwide, $60 million budget. Definitely a bomb. Definitely, if it's broke even, I would be shocked. And if it has broke even, it's not making much profit. So, and in comparison to the other Stephen King film that's out right now, it's embarrassing. Girls Trip, one of my favorites I've been talking about for the box office. $114 million domestic, $19 million budget, $134 million worldwide. This is a huge hit for the director, Malcolm D. Lee. None of his other films have had this kind of success. I assume there's going to be a sequel to this movie. I would put money down on that. War for the Planet of the Apes finally making some traction here. 471 million worldwide. China is really helping this movie, and thank goodness, because I did like this movie. And some people have gotten mad to me that I've been so harsh on it about the box office. When I talk about the box office, I am no way criticizing a film's quality. I think War for the Planet of the Apes is a really good movie, and I like the trilogy. I'm not the biggest fan of Dawn, but I do like this film. I think it's a better movie than Dawn, by far, actually. But the domestic numbers are disappointing. It just is what it is. The last film made 200 mil domestic, 700 million worldwide, and this isn't even coming close to the domestic total of the first film in the trilogy, and it hasn't even passed its budget. Those aren't good numbers. $146 million for a $150 million movie is not good numbers. I'm sorry, it's just not. Especially for the end of a trilogy. I've said this before, the marketing was bad for this film. They didn't separate it enough from the previous films. They relied on critical praise, and they didn't realize that you have to have a good marketing campaign and release date. You can't just rely on rave reviews. They knew they had a good movie here. What they didn't know is that you can't release this... Like, this should have been a fall release, because it's a very serious film. It's not like a big summer blockbuster type movie. So when they released it during summer, it didn't play to that audience that wanted to escape. And of course it didn't play to that audience. This film it's long, too. It's a long, dark movie. It's not a happy, escapist film. Still, it was really struggling there for a while. It passed 400 million, I think, the weekend before last, or at least last weekend, and I talked about how that's really helpful, because I'm certain they've broke even now. They've had to have broken even. Because the budget, even with a high marketing cost, I'm sure they broke even after 400 mil. Maybe even before that, but 471 million, they had to have definitely broke even, and it does look like this film is going to make $500 million worldwide. So, even though that's only a little bit more than the first film, and the first film had a much lower budget and did a lot better domestically, and that counts a lot more, because I think they only get like 25% of the ticket sales from China. So who knows what the profits are going to be on this movie? It's very confusing. We're going to have to wait till the end of the year to hear about the profits, but I think 500 million worldwide is an okay total. That's about on par with the first movie. It's just, this is a pretty expensive movie, and the marketing, I'm sure, cost a decent penny, because I saw ads for this on TV, like, every day. So I'm not really sure. No, I think War's better than Dawn, dude. I don't like Dawn that much. I mean, I like Dawn, but it's just okay. But I think War... I actually think War is much better than Dawn of the Planet of the Apes. I think Dawn's like one of the most cliche films I've seen in a long time. If you actually watch Dawn, it's got a jerk character bad guy that you know is a jerk character bad guy immediately. The good guy characters are the most cliche, generic good guy characters. Every decision that Caesar makes is stupid. Koba makes no sense. Like, at all. Like, Koba's character legitimately makes no sense. And it doesn't really pick up until the third act when they start going back to the first movie and actually bring some emotional depth to it. Before that, it's literally every film you've ever seen. It's just a crappy remake of Princess Mononoke. It's just it's just a Kurosawa ripoff, where the first film is really fresh and original, where it's about this creature that this guy, Caesar, who's disconnected from humanity. They won't accept him, so he makes his own society in his image. He builds his own image in the society, and he makes his own people. That's a fascinating story. You see this guy grow from a baby into this man who makes his own world. That's just a compelling story. It's a journey you go on with Caesar. Dawn's about Caesar hanging out in like a fort with his buddies, and then the humans coming over and acting like cliches from every movie you've ever seen, except for Gary Oldman, and then it wrapping up in a very cliche way that isn't very three-dimensional. I think Dawn's got a much better... I think War's got a better structure. I think War's got better dialogue. I think Woody Harrelson's a better character than any of the human characters in Dawn. And I think it gets a lot closer right about the first movie. I still think Rise of the Planet of the Apes is the best movie of the trilogy. And one of the best sci-fi films, despite some issues with James Franco and some of the... but I think... I don't think the Wachowskis are ever done because they keep getting money. Like you gotta understand, Sensei, that show cost like $150 million, and then somehow they got $180 million to make Jupiter Ascending, and they keep getting money. Somehow the Wachowskis just keep getting $100 million movies made. I don't know how. So I'm not sure. I mean, I'm not saying War doesn't have problems, dude. I agree with you. I think Matt Reeves did a great job directing these films. I think the screenplays of the second and third film, in particular, I think Dawn had a lot of writing issues. I think it felt a little rushed. The Rise is the only one. Rise is the only one that I think has a really powerful screenplay that is about somebody rising up against. I know it makes you. It's that great thing in that movie where you're rooting against the humans. Like you don't want the humans to win. You want Caesar to win. And then when Caesar says at the end, Caesar is home. It's this great universal thing, you know. It's this great feeling of connectivity to this character and his journey he's been on. I didn't really feel that with Dawn, or maybe for War I got a little bit. I got kind of sucked up in Caesar watching the people betray him. That really got to me, seeing the other apes betray Caesar. I thought that was the most clever part. You're talking about manipulation, dude. Dawn has so much manipulation. Go back and watch Dawn of the Planet of the Apes. Every scene's manipulative. Every single scene. There's not one subtle moment in Dawn outside of, like, the first 15 minutes with the sign language. Like, Koba's not subtle at all. He's clearly a bad guy. He's clearly crazy. He's not some gray, complex character like people try to make him out to be. He's just a jerk. The a-hole guy character that shows up, he's just the a-hole guy that's there to make you mad and cause trouble between the apes and the humans. I mean, I'm not sure. People seem to give these movies a pass in a lot of ways because they're so beautiful and they ignore all the contrived writing that all three of them have. And I'm a fan of this trilogy, but all three of them have very contrived screenplays. They're not bad, though. Like I said, I still think Dawn's a good movie. It still works overall and stuff like that, but I remember walking out of Dawn and being like, oh, I was kind of disappointed. And then War, maybe with War I didn't go in with as high as expectations. I think it still works too, man. I'm not saying it's a bad movie. I still think Dawn works too, but you could cut out half the cast of that movie and it wouldn't affect one bit of that movie. You could certainly cut out that jerk guy that's from the guy who wears the hat, like Steve or whatever. That guy's an awful character. You meet him and you're like, oh, that guy's going to be a jerk, and that's all he does. That's the only reason he's in the movie. It's like, that's not good writing. That's so lame. Like in the first movie, the guy who ran the laboratory, he was evil, right? But you understood why he was doing what he was doing. He had motivations. You got the money behind it and all that. Would you say that Kingsman kind of feels like Matt Stone and Trey Parker? I think that's a fair comparison. The first one, I think that's close. Yeah, it kind of reminds you of Team America, like the action and the kind of satirical edge too. I mean, I think it's a Matthew Vaughn film. I think it's more in line with Kick-Ass and X-Men First Class. But I can see I can see like the Trey and Matt, because if they did a spy spoof and they tried to play it somewhat seriously, it would probably be something like Kingsman. Like, I could definitely see Matt and Trey doing something closer to Kingsman than Austin Powers. I'd say Austin Powers isn't really close to something they would do. I'll go with that. I'll go with that comparison. Okay, let's keep moving on up. Logan Lucky. 40 mil worldwide, $29 million budget. The marketing was pretty decent cost on this. Soderbergh released this himself. He marketed it himself. I thought the marketing was pretty good, but didn't work. I think the release date hurt this movie. I get August, I do, but it was such a crowded summer and so many films were carrying over into August, like Spider-Man. I think this would have played a lot better in, like, January or February, in my opinion. I think this film would have done a lot better earlier in the year. I don't think it was a film he released during summer. This film actually got great reviews, like all Soderbergh films do. He's kind of a critic's darling. But for him coming out of retirement and all that, you know, this is his typical performance of his films outside of Magic Mike or the Ocean flicks. I wish Logan Lucky had done better. I wish original films like that would do better, but it's just what it is. Emoji Movie. I also have a review for this up on the channel. 50 mil budget, 84 mil domestic. That's a pretty terrible domestic total, honestly, for an animated film. Like, if you look at every other animated film's domestic total, they pretty much always break 100 million outside of Nutjob. 185 million worldwide. That's not bad. It's just okay, though. They're lucky the budget on this was cheap. If they had actually spent real money on this, like an animated film's budget's supposed to be for the most part, like if they'd spent $100 million on this movie, this would be a disaster. It's only helped by the fact that the budget's so low. Where Despicable Me 3 by Illumination, $80 million budget, $1,019 million worldwide. Holy God. You cannot stop the machine of Illumination. Maybe one of these producers, yeah. Let's look at Illumination's box office, shall we? Shark Tale. I think that was actually DreamWorks, but this is a branch off. Everyone's Hero didn't do well. this guy worked on. Now let's look. Despicable Me, 250 million. The Lorax, 214 million. Despicable Me 2, 368. Minions, 336. Secret Life of Pets, 368. Sing, 270. Despicable Me 3, 261. Let's look at these worldwide totals. 1.1 billion for Minions, 1 billion for Despicable Me 3. Despicable Me 2, 970 million. Secret Life of Pets, which was the most profitable film for a studio last year. This film made the studio like $380 million in profit. 875 million. Sing made... And look at the budgets. Let's look at the budgets of these films. 75 million, 630 million worldwide. I mean, nobody's making the money that Illumination's making right now, except maybe Blumhouse with Split and Get Out and Annabelle and all that stuff. But oh my god. Like, Jesus Christ. Illumination just has it figured out. They totally know how to market to children. And do well at the foreign box office, man. Their movies kill at the foreign box office. I mean, they're doing so much better than every Pixar film. My thought... Any thoughts on Emma Stone's upcoming movie, Battle of the Sexes? I like the writer and directors. The directors made Little Miss Sunshine and Ruby Sparks, and Ruby Sparks is one of my favorite movies from the last 10... I love Ruby Sparks, actually. A great movie. And the people who are writing it, I can't remember. I can't remember who's writing the script. It's pretty good screenwriters. Let me go back and look at that. I'm not a big fan of the Billie Jean King thing and all that, because as anyone knows, it was bullcrap media stuff. Like... I mean, it's like how John McEnroe got in a lot of trouble for saying Serena Williams wouldn't be one of the top tennis players if she played with men, and that's just a fact of men being faster and stronger. But because of this match between Billie Jean King and this guy, everyone, and Bobby Riggs, they try to act like a woman beat a man in this sport and women are equal to men in tennis, and I've hated that because, and I'm not being sexist, you could say what you want, they're just not. It's biology. They don't ask LeBron James if a woman could come beat him in basketball. They don't ask Tom Brady if a woman could be a better quarterback than him, because she can't. There's not 6'5" women with muscle like that. There's just not the speed like that. So this whole game was a circus, but I'm hoping the movie will tap into that aspect. Oh yeah, Simon Belfoy or whatever. He wrote Slumdog Millionaire, but he also worked on The Full Monty, and he wrote Catching Fire in 127 Hours. He's a pretty decent writer, but I'm a big fan of the directors. I actually think they're very good filmmakers. Even if you don't like the screenplay to Little Miss Sunshine, which I get, it's a very well made movie. So I don't know. I've heard this movie's good though. It's been getting good reviews, but I'm wondering how much of that is because it's actually a good movie or because of the politics behind it. That is kind of that's the thing that bothers me. Wait, Illumination did Everyone's Hero. Wasn't that awful cheap film made before Illumination? Yeah, it was, but it's like the producer who started Illumination, he made that film. But that was a film, that was like a dream project of Christopher Reeve, and they basically released it after he died. That was something he was working on. And everyone, I'm not trying to get political here about the Billie Jean King thing, but it was ridiculous. They had some old guy play this young girl in tennis. He was an old man. Like, he wasn't young. He was out of his prime. And it was just a publicity stunt. Now, I heard the movie kind of goes into that, and I hope that's what it was, because it really wasn't some big thing for women and feminism. It wasn't. It was a fake game, basically, that proved nothing. And women, and it really hasn't helped women athletes outside of how the media approaches them, I guess. But it's not like the best tennis player in the world's a woman now. It's not like the best athletes in the world are females now in these sports. It just didn't happen. And I'm 100% with John McEnroe on this. And I think all the crap he got for saying what he said was ridiculous. And he made a great point. He said, they don't ask LeBron James this question because it's a stupid question. It's an objectively stupid question to ask someone. We're talking about sports, not the quality of your character as a person or what you're capable of doing or success. We're just talking about physical traits. That's it. It's why they have weight classes in fighting sports. Okay, so that's, yeah, because that's basically what it was. It was very much a pro wrestling. It was all fake. Yeah, that's what people don't get about the Billie Jean King. I mean, I hope that's what the movie goes into. It was just a big scheme. Like, that's all it was. It was, this guy came up with it to make money. Steve Carell's character, that's who he's playing. It's just a guy who was a schemer. Like, it wasn't a real tennis match. I don't know why people People bring that matchup to me all the time because I'm a big tennis fan. I love tennis. I love playing tennis and I love watching tennis. And people bring that game up to me and it's like, okay, actually go watch that game. That's not a real tennis match. That's not one of the great tennis matches. What the heck are you talking about? Like, in modern day tennis is so much faster and quicker. Like, they hit way harder now. Yeah, it's just biology. It's just biology. That's all it is. It has nothing to do with... I would love if women could play on the level of men. Yeah, he was a hustler, exactly. Yeah, he was a con artist guy. Yeah, that's all. He wasn't even that misogynist. He played that stuff up for the camera. Like, it was one of the early days of that kind of stuff in the media where it was all fake and stuff like that. Now, that is an interesting idea for a movie. I do think that's an interesting idea. If they approach the movie from that point, I like it. Because to approach it like it was this real game where she beat this guy, that's so stupid, because that's not the kind of story it was, and that's not what's interesting about it. And there's a lot better characters to follow that with. Like there's a lot better female athletes out there that did things that I think... I mean, Serena Williams herself deserves a movie. She's a terrific female athlete. She's one of the best athletes in the world, even as a woman. So, you know, she's overcome a lot of the struggle. So, and she's black. That's a big thing. I'd prefer to see a movie about her and her sister, than Billie Jean King. But if they're approaching it from the point of view that it was kind of media circus, that makes sense. And I'm sure Billie Jean King knew that. She had to have known that at the time. She wasn't a moron. She was a very smart lady, so I'm thinking she knew. Oh, that movie came out this weekend, didn't it? Came out in limited release. I don't see it here, so I'm not sure. I thought it came out. Maybe it's coming out next week, and I thought it got released this weekend. All right. Oh, there it is. Battle of the Sexes. 525,021 theaters. That's not bad. But you have to wonder how much of that is simply Steve Carell and Emma Stone bringing people in. I don't know. Because the filmmaker's last couple movies, Little Miss Sunshine ended up being a huge hit and made $100 million worldwide. Kind of became a mainstream movie. But Ruby Sparks didn't do well at all. And I think Ruby Sparks is a terrific... Highly recommend Ruby Sparks if you haven't seen it. Written by Zoe Kazan. It's a kind of a deconstruction of how people feel about the Pixie Dream Girl, and it's just one of the most romantic films I've seen in years. I think it's the eternal sunshine of its day. I think it very much captures the same kind of stuff about relationships and the profound nature of them. But 525,000, that's not bad. I hope I can see this movie and review it. I'd love to review it and talk about it. Hopefully it gets a wider release. Any thoughts on the trailer for Tomb Raider? The Tomb Raider trailer is awful. That doesn't mean it's going to be a bad movie, and it doesn't mean that the lead actress will be bad or anything. Whoever edited that trailer did an awful job. That's all I can say. The trailer's editing is terrible. The shots they chose, the way they put it together, it doesn't reflect the movie. Like, but if it is reflecting the movie, that movie's going to be a disaster. That's going to do really bad. I hope that's not the movie we're getting, because it just looks like they screwed up from the beginning of it. But that's a bad... They need to go back to the drawing board and rethink the marketing campaign immediately. Like, immediately. I don't think she relies on the director. She's been good in a lot of movies. She was great in Ex Machina, and she was great in that film she won the Oscar for. I can't remember the name of that movie with Eddie Redmayne, but I've seen her in a few movies, and she's always great. And I hate to tell you, dude, almost every actor is dependent on a director. It's kind of a fact of actors that people don't like to talk about. Do you notice that Joaquin Phoenix is like 10 out of 10 amazing when he works with a great director, and then he's just kind of okay in other movies? Like, that's... Like, you ever notice how Paul Thomas Anderson got that performance out of Tom Cruise in Magnolia? It's any actor. They're always dependent on the writer and director. If it's a bad movie with a bad screenplay and a bad director, how is the actor expected to come elevate the material? It doesn't make any sense. Some actors can do that, but it's pretty rare. Marlon Brando's been bad in movies. I've seen plenty of movies where great actors are bad. You know, you can't help it if you're getting misdirected or the screenplay you're getting. Hey, man, you know, it happens a lot. Those guys who were great foreign directors, they got to work on the Pirates of the Caribbean film, and that kind of blew up in their faces. They got a drunk Johnny Depp who didn't even show up on the set on time, and their movie underperformed domestically, and, you know, and Johnny Depp's just owing a bunch of money, so, you know, it happens. Really, a lot of foreign directors, when they come over, it doesn't work out for them as well as you think it would. Like, remember when John Woo came over? He did Broken Arrow and Face Off, and then his career just kind of petered out, and then he had to go back. And he ended up making one of his best films by going back home. That it just happens. It's really tough to be a foreign director. I even think Guillermo del Toro's had a hard time. Like, his foreign films play a lot better than his mainstream. Like, Pacific Rim was basically a bomb. And the Hellboy films, they didn't break any records. The first Hellboy didn't even break 100 million worldwide, so who knows? It's very tough. You know, people ask me that, though, about actors. They go, oh, do you think that... It's like, man, everyone's relying on the directors and writers. That's what makes a movie. Actors don't make the movies. You know, a great character comes from the screenplay. Casey Affleck's terrific performance last year in Manchester by the Sea as Lee. Face Off is fun. But that character he played, that character comes from the script. That character was amazing that the guy wrote. That character was incredible. And that's what makes a great... I mean, an actor builds off that writing. You know? I mean, because they gotta have material. That's, you know... That's why they all like doing Shakespeare. The material's so good. So when you do Shakespeare, it really can show off your best qualities, because Shakespeare's writing's made for actors. It's made for them to learn and craft and make their and the language of it. You know, that's why they like doing it. It's a great outlet for actors. That's the actor's place in the arts. It's to take material and present it to audiences, and they kind of smooth out the flaws that material or filmmakers can bring out. An actor's job is to use their face and physical abilities and line delivery to smooth out all the rough edges. But if you don't have a good foundation, an actor can only do so much. You got to have vision. You got to have somebody who knows how to channel those actors in the right way, or they're just going to be trying, and they're not going to know who their characters are. Dunkirk, $512 million worldwide, $100 million budget, $50 million marketing budget. Domestically, they probably didn't make a huge profit off this film, but that worldwide total, baby, mwah. Christopher Nolan has several films over $500 million now. This is his 5th film to make over $500 million worldwide. He is one of the signature directors with Peter Jackson, Steven Spielberg. Really, there's only a handful of them that can make movies that make this kind of money off name recognition. And to do a war film like that, Clint Eastwood probably has a name that good now. Clint Eastwood can sell a movie on his name if it's the right kind of project. But success all around. I don't know where the final total is going to end up on this. At one point, people thought this film could have made $600 million. But that's early on when people thought maybe the holds would be a little better and it would make like 230 mil domestic. And so I don't see it making 600 million worldwide, but even if this ends up at, like, let's say 530 million worldwide, it's a great total. They've already... Getting over 500 mil was kind of like the place they needed to go. I think everyone involved's happy. The studios made their money back. No one's going to get his payday. The film's guaranteed to get a crap load of Oscar noms. And yeah, I mean, it was a tough film to guess. This could have been a bomb. I mean, I didn't know how well Dunkirk was going to do. I was like, maybe it'll open at 35 million. There were some people saying that. Then I heard other people saying 65 million. You know, it was all over. You don't know. It was a very tough film to predict, but you can't knock 186 mil domestic and 512 million worldwide on a $100 million movie. That's great. It's outperforming War for the Planet of the Apes. Like, it's way overperforming in comparison to that movie. It's doing a lot better, and it's not relying on the Chinese box office to do it. So that's got to be noted too. Yeah, there's a new Tomb Raider movie. Hey, thanks for watching that review, man. I'm happy with that Dunkirk review. I know it was 40 minutes, but I put a lot of work into that review. I really wanted to get into why I came out surprised, because I will criticize Christopher Nolan. I will criticize The Dark Knight Rises and Interstellar and some of the stuff he did in Dark Knight and Inception, and I like those movies, but I was still... but Dunkirk shocked me. It was his best film since, maybe for me, since The Prestige. I think he really returned to form. I mean, it took me back to The Prestige and Memento and all that. I was like, wow, Christopher Nolan's back. The restraint of dialogue, the editing, the music choices, the emotion that he got out of it, the subtlety, it's just terrific. It's a terrific piece of work. Very muscular film. I like how it runs like a machine. Nolan's always kind of had that quality, but he never embraced it like he did with Dunkirk. It's okay, man. You can always rewatch it later. It's no big deal. Okay, Annabelle Creation. Like I've been saying week after week, horror is dominating the box office in 2017. Split, one of the most profitable films of the year. Get Out, one of the most profitable films of the year. Then It's definitely making a lot of money. So, Annabelle Creation now has surpassed the first film, which is really rare with the horror sequel. Like, even The Conjuring didn't pass the first film domestically. It did worldwide, but only by like 2 or 3 million. But if you actually look at this, the first film made $256 million worldwide on a $6.5 million budget. And if you remember, Annabelle got terrible reviews. I mean, it got hated on. So this film, they bring in the director from Lights Out. It actually gets pretty decent reviews. So the word of mouth's a little bit better than the previous film, because this opened a little bit less than the first movie. But the word of mouth's been much better for it. It ended up going over 100 million. It's going to pass The Conjuring 2, which is kind of crazy. Like, if we go look at James Wan here, and you look at... Wait, he's not a producer on The Conjuring? What the heck? Okay, well, let's just look at his director's credit then. What the... Okay, so The Conjuring 1 and 2, they made about the same money worldwide. About 320 million. Annabelle's about to pass The Conjuring 2 domestically, which is crazy. This is a spin-off from The Conjuring. So like I said before, this is the Frasier of horror movies. It's a spin-off that's just as successful. The fact this film's going to pass 300 million worldwide is insane. It's also going to have huge profits. There's no way they put a lot of money into the marketing campaign. Even if they did, let's say they have $50 million in this movie altogether. They've not only made a profit, they've made quite a bit, and they're going to continue to make profit. So, huge hit there. That's another major success of the year that's kind of getting overshadowed by it and some other films coming out. Oh, dude, I've been thinking about a Metroid movie for years. I've been thinking about, in my head, a Metroid film for years. I would get Starbuck from Battlestar Galactica to play Samus. I can't remember that actor's name. Kelly something? She was amazing as Starbuck, though, on Battlestar, so I would get her. I think she has, like, the perfect... It's not a dialogue role, but she has the physical... She's very tall. If it wasn't her, I guess Charlize Theron, if you wanted to go with a big name. But personally, I'd prefer to get that chick, because I think the way she played Starbuck, if you played Samus kind of that way, where she put her legs up on tables and stuff like that and acted like she didn't care... Starbuck's one of my favorite feminist characters in literature ever. The fact that they took a male character from a 70s Star Wars show that was a ripoff and then reversed it into a woman, and it ended up being genius. And I was just rewatching the Battlestar pilot, the original, like, 3-hour movie event with my girlfriend, and she had never seen it. And she's like, this is so good. And I'm like, I know, isn't it? No, it's amazing. The writing and stuff. It's like the best mech anime ever. It's like Star Trek. I'm like... excluding the 4th season, but I was like, I know, right? Battlestar's awesome. Even the special effects hold up. That's from like 2003 or 4, and I was watching it, and like the CGI still looks great. The physics of the spaceships and all that, and the percussion, the drums they have come on during the battle sequences. So good. So good. Okay, Leap. This is that German foreign film, German animated film or something. It's made 100 million worldwide. I don't know what the movie cost. Maybe we can find a budget on Wikipedia, actually. Let's look that up. Leap, with an exclamation point. It cost 30 million, so they've probably made a profit off this film. I could see that. Okay, Brad's Status. 1 million. Oh yeah, this is that Mike White movie, Ben Stiller. If you don't know Mike White, he wrote School of Rock, and he's worked on some films. I'm pretty sure he directed, oh wait, no, he didn't direct, he wrote, Cedar Rapids, I think it was called, and he worked on an HBO show. He made a movie I liked years ago called Chuck and Buck, which is a really good movie. Spider-Man Homecoming slowed down a little bit. Last week it was at 861 million, now it's at 874. I guess it's up for debate if it's going to pass 900 million. I would have said a few weeks ago it was guaranteed, but now, a couple weeks ago at least, I don't know now. Not that this is a bad total. The budget's 175 million, and they're at about 875 million, so they've done pretty well. And Sony's come out and said this is the most profitable Spider-Man film, although, like I said last week, I'm confused how that makes any sense. How did Sam Raimi's original film in 2002 make more profit? That film basically made $1 billion, and the VHS sales for that film were, like, huge. It was one of the highest-selling DVD videos ever, so I'm not sure how they made... How did they make more profit off this than that movie? It literally makes no sense. If you go look back and look at the profits of Spider-Man, it's like, you had to have made hundreds of millions off that movie. They probably made a couple $100 million plus off this film. There's no way they didn't make like $400 million off but they're just lying. That's just a lie from Sony. But since this has definitely made more money for them than Amazing Spider-Man 1 and 2, those films had very low profits. I think The Amazing Spider-Man 2, their profit wasn't even $100 million. I mean, it was a bad profit. So, yeah, you know, I talked a lot of flack about this performance early on because the weekend drops were horrible. A 62% drop, a 49% drop, a 40% drop. The drops were steep. Then it picked up momentum here in August and September, and it held, and it was able to scratch its way rather impressively to 331 million. I mean, that's a great total. Before it came out, I would have guessed 351, but still, like, there was a point it looked like this film wasn't going to break 300 million. If you went to box office analyst sites, they were predicting a tap-out point at about 290 million. So this has overperformed where it was at one point. The Chinese release has been huge. The China release. Yeah, the Chinese released it. So it's all over. It's just a huge hit now. It's past Guardians of the Galaxy. It's past Wonder Woman. It's more successful than both of those films worldwide. That's crazy. You know, it puts Spider-Man right back at the top, because Guardians of the Galaxy is a very hyped sequel to a hugely successful first film, and Wonder Woman's one of the biggest films in the last few years. It's one of the biggest comic book movies ever. Domestically, Wonder Woman did huge. So this film, you know, for being a rebooted franchise that came back in Civil War, although I think this just shows the strength of the Marvel brand. I think this is Robert Downey Jr., who every film he stars in is Tony Stark. Civil War, Age of Ultron, Iron Man 3, pretty much all of the films he stars in as Tony Stark make huge money. The last few Tony Stark films with him in them, let's see, they all made $1 billion. Civil War made $1.1 billion, Iron Man 3 made $1.2 billion, Age of Ultron made $1.4, and Avengers made $1.5. So since 2010, since Iron Man 2, every Tony Stark film for the most part, all these four have made that much money. So this making $875 million with Spider-Man in it, I mean, those are great numbers. The second film now on paper should make $1 billion, but we're going to have to see what happens from here. But as far as Sony is concerned, this is the only film they've had this year that's really going to make enough profit for them to pretty much not shut down their movie studio, because all their other films are performing terribly outside of Baby Driver, and they've had a really bad year, a lot of loss. They're down in the quarter. But you can't knock this movie. You know, it's a huge hit. This is one of the most successful films of 2017. It's got to be in the top 5. Yeah, it's number 4. It's currently the 4th most successful film worldwide. I would say that Star Wars is definitely going to pass this. It's debatable if Justice League is going to. We're going to have to wait to see what Justice League does. So I'd say this film's pretty secure in the top 5, top 6 or so. And you see here, yeah, it's above Guardians and Wonder Woman, and unless Justice League passes it, it's going to be the most successful. And it's past Batman v Superman worldwide, Spider-Man, with a much lower budget. This would really stomp on Wonder Woman if Wonder Woman's budget wasn't $149 million. So Wonder Woman's budget's so low that it just looks like a huge success, and it doesn't rely on the Chinese box office for a lot of its boost. It did so well domestically, so. This really doesn't hurt Wonder Woman in a major way, but it is funny because they were saying Wonder Woman was going to pass Spider-Man 1 for being the most successful debut superhero film. If you go back to Raimi's Spider-Man, go back to Spider-Man Raimi's original, it made $403 million and $821 million worldwide. That was the most successful debut superhero film for years, right? Now, if you go look with inflation, if you adjust it, that film made $617 million. That's $200 million more than what it made. So in reality, Spider-Man actually made over $1 billion when it came out. This is one of the most successful films ever made. It made $114 million in 2002. Spider-Man Homecoming made $117 million in 2017. Just do the math in your head and it kind of is mind-blowing. Even Spider-Man 2, $534 million. Spider-Man 3, $434 million. Those are crazy numbers. But the funny thing is everyone was saying Wonder Woman, because it made $411 million domestic, it passed Spider-Man. So now it's the most successful debut superhero film. And I'm like, okay, fair point. I'll give you guys that. You know, even though you're doing that without adjusting ticket price. But that's what we do for a lot of movies. And they were going to give it the worldwide champion, too, because it was about to pass Spider-Man. And then out of nowhere, Spider-Man Homecoming makes more worldwide, and now is the biggest debut film for a superhero, and it's Spider-Man again. So that's hilarious. DC thought they had it. DC's like, I got it, and then out of nowhere, that's hilarious. Like, Spider-Man still wins. So that's so funny to me, because they're going to talk about Wonder Woman, and they're going to have to add the caveat of like, oh, well, it's domestically. They can't say worldwide anymore, because now this film, I mean, this is the first film in a franchise. And don't get me wrong, I don't consider Wonder Woman or this film the first film in the franchise, like they say they do. Like, I get what they mean, but these characters were both introduced in other movies. Wonder Woman was first introduced in Batman v Superman, that made a lot of money. And Spider-Man was first introduced in Civil War, that made a lot of money. And he had like a scene-stealing moment in that movie. He has a huge scene. Like, he gets like 10 minutes of screen time. It comes in and kills. So it's like, okay, I agree with you guys that these are their debut movies, but it's not like Iron Man was in a bunch of movies before his first flick. They had to sell that film on Robert Downey Jr. in the movie itself. Like, Wonder Woman and Spider-Man both get a lot of traction from the brand. More so than I think a lot of those early characters like Iron Man did. I don't think Iron Man got that benefit. Or Thor, or Captain America, or any of those characters. Like, these guys were in... Everyone saw Civil War. So if you saw Civil War and you liked Spider-Man, you're going to go see... And Batman v Superman, Wonder Woman was the part... I mean, I didn't expect Wonder Woman to do as well there either. But Wonder Woman doesn't need to make that kind of money. Wonder Woman's already made its money. Can you imagine the profits they got just off the domestic totals? As I'm saying, Iron Man went from a B-tier character in the comics to an A-list character in the movies. He's probably the most famous superhero right now with Batman. Like, it's probably Robert Downey Jr.'s Iron Man. The box office speaks for itself. And that was because that movie was so good. So, you know, it's a different era. You can sell a movie on brand now of these superhero characters. Not that they didn't do that with Raimi and X-Men, but... you know, a lot of people are going to talk about the performances of Wonder Woman and Spider-Man, and they're never going to include that context that, you know, a lot of this comes from other movies that have fan bases that kind of built in that fan, especially with Marvel. Marvel's done a terrific job with that. Marvel's got everyone trusting their brand, and their movies do well because of that, like Pixar was years ago. Okay, let's keep going up. Wind River, doing really well for an indie flick. $11 million budget, $31 million domestic. This film's doing great. Like, I thought this film was going to make $20 million I mean, really, for the kind of film it is, this is way out overperforming. Look, Catherine Bigelow's Detroit didn't even come close to this. Stronger, starring Jake Gyllenhaal in a role that I think might win him the Oscar this year. Directed by David Gordon Green, an indie darling, who's made some big comedy films like The Sitter and Pineapple Express, but he started his background with films like George Washington and All the Real Girls, Snow Angels. He made that film Joe and Prince Avalanche. I'm actually a David Gordon Green fan. I don't like all of his movies, obviously, but I still think he's a fine filmmaker. This is a big crowd pleaser. It's got 95% on Rotten Tomatoes, and the woman in it, she's from Orphan Black, which is an amazing show if you get to watch it. Her and Gyllenhaal are getting raved on for this movie. If you actually go look, I mean, they're getting raved on. And a lot of people are saying it's a very by-the-numbers biopic. Guy loses his legs in the Boston bombing and has to recover type thing. But when the reviews were first coming out, I noticed a lot of that. But as it went on and on, if you look now, this film's actually pretty acclaimed. And it kind of reminds me of a film like The Fighter. So I'm going to say right now, I think this film's going to catch on at the box office. I think it's a crowd pleaser. I think this is going to get Oscar nominations. I think it's going to get possibly a Best Picture nomination, like a Blind Side did, except this is getting better reviews. Jake's definitely going to get that nomination he deserved for both. He deserved an Oscar nomination last year for Nocturnal Animals, and he deserved an Oscar win for Nightcrawler. He deserved the Oscar that year for and he didn't even get nominated for Nightcrawler. And that's an amazing performance. But a lot of critics are saying this is Jake Gyllenhaal's best performance. Like, the best performance of his career. And, I mean, you know, Jake Gyllenhaal's often better than the movies he's in. Because I think Jake Gyllenhaal's the best young American actor working right now. I think he's a far better actor than Leonardo DiCaprio and a lot of the other guys out there that are bigger names than him. I think he's perfect. He really is. I think he's much closer to what Robert De Niro and those guys did in the 70s than these actors who keep trying to be those guys. But, God, what's her name? Tatiana Maslany. She's yeah, she's from Orphan Black. She's an amazing actress and one of the best out there. I think she's going to get an Oscar nomination for Best Actress, and I think he's going to get. He might win. He really will. I mean, don't roll this out. Jake Gyllenhaal is getting an Oscar nomination, and he might win. Well, I think Ico's a masterpiece, man. So of course I like Ico. I mean, they're both great games. It's really apples and oranges. So I don't know. I think Ico's a little masterpiece. It has like maybe my favorite boss battle at the end of it ever. Is in Ico. So, but yeah, this film, I think it's going to catch on. I think 574 theaters, $1 million is okay. It's not great, but I have a feeling this film's going to catch on with people and have good word of mouth once they see it. If they handle this right, they might have screwed up on the release of this movie. I think they should have went with even less theaters. But that doesn't mean it won't get Oscar nominations. I even think David Gordon Green might get a director's nomination. I really do. I see this film really playing well with the Academy. And it would be great to see Jake Gyllenhaal win Best Actor, wouldn't it? Oh my god. That would be so awesome. Also, he recently was in a production of Sunday in the Park with George and did a great performance in that. And I'd like to see a live-action movie of Sunday in the Park with George with Jake Gyllenhaal in it. The Hitman's Bodyguard. Wow, that update of the foreign box office is huge for this movie. 73 mil domestic, which was just okay with a $30 million budget. And you're like, well, this film's probably broke even enough, but that's not great. Now it's a $71 million foreign total, $145 million worldwide. I think we can officially call this movie a hit. I think we can say that. And like I said before, Ryan Reynolds movies do really well if he's Deadpool or if it's an older black actor like Denzel Washington beating the crap out of him. People don't like when Jeff Bridges does it, but if you go back to Safe House, that was Ryan's last film to really be a hit outside of Deadpool. And it's Denzel as a guy that... Wait, Ryan having to protect Denzel... And Denzel's... Oh, it's the same movie as Hitman's Bodyguard. That's right, yeah. So, if you do that premise, Ryan films do well. But I kept saying, like, because this film's held on, and I'm like, well, it's doing okay, but, you know, it didn't make $100 million, you know. But I kept wondering, where's the foreign box office? Shouldn't Sam Jackson and Ryan Reynolds be able to bring in foreign? And there are. This might make over 150, 160 million worldwide. So, yeah, the studio's definitely made a profit now. That's good box office. Finally, I was waiting for a dang update. Oh, he was so good in Nightcrawler. He was so good. He was so good in Nightcrawler. I mean, he transcended, really. I mean, he went to that next level as an actor in Nightcrawler. And I've loved Jake Gyllenhaal since Donnie Darko and stuff. I was always a fan. Okay, friend request, new release. 2,573 theaters, $9.9 million budget. This is a horror film that didn't do well. 2.4 million in 2,500 theaters. That is awful. It may not even reach its budget. Man, they should have not released this in theaters. This should have went straight to video or on Netflix. That is a terrible performance. Oh my god. Mother, expectedly, like we all thought last week, had a huge drop. The controversy did not help the word of mouth like it does some movies. $30 million budget. 13 mil domestic, 56% drop. I actually thought it was going to drop worse than that. I was expecting 70%, but 7 million. Probably not going to make 20 mil domestic. If it does, it won't make much more than that. 25 mil worldwide. Hasn't touched its budget yet. Who knows what the marketing cost was, but it's hard for me to see this being a big win for the studio. The film got okay reviews, not great reviews. It's probably not going to get the Oscar nominations they were expecting from Darren Aronofsky. So... in a lot of ways, I don't know. Is this another Fountain? You can't say this movie's a hit, and it's also not going to get any nomination. Like, I guarantee this isn't going to get Oscar noms, really. It might get one or two, but not the... I'm assuming the studio thought this was going to get, like, several. So, I don't know. They spent way too much money on this movie, too. Why wasn't this some low-budget indie flick? Why the heck did this cost $30 million? Why did they pay Jennifer Lawrence $15 million? So they paid Jennifer Lawrence $15 million... to make a movie where she hooked up with Aronofsky, and he basically just got to jerk off on camera for 2 hours, and they released it into the mainstream theaters, and it's not making them any money back. And she's going to come on TV and online and complain about income inequality and how she gets treated and sexism, even though she got paid $15 million for this disaster. Jesus Christ, Jennifer Lawrence. Like, is she about to lose her status? I really think this film's going to hurt her career. Because Passengers and X-Men Apocalypse and Joy, even the last Hunger Games movie, all big drops from her previous works. I mean, she needs a hit. She needs a film that really solidifies her and people love her in it and stuff like that. I think she's losing a lot of her... Maybe they overexposed her, but films like this was not a good career move. Making some crazy art house film with Aronofsky that plays like this, that plays horribly. Like, Natalie Portman, when she did Black Swan, brilliant. The Wrestler, Mickey Rourke, of course you do that movie. That totally paid off. But this is not good for her career or her base. The people who like her don't like her. And she's got such a terrible persona outside of Hollywood. Man, that's like asking if there's a good video game movie. Like, no. Home Again. Reese Witherspoon. It's kind of holding on. 22 mil domestic. It's doing okay. Luckily, the budget's real low. American Assassin, 57% drop. This is an okay movie. It's a middle-of-the-road movie. I think it would have played a lot better in February or March. I don't think they should have released this so late in the year. It's barely going to pass its budget. It's not a hit. It's not a bomb. But it's nothing really to talk about, unfortunately. Lego Ninjago movie. This is the worst opening for a Lego movie so far, and the Lego franchise has consistently showed diminishing returns. The Lego movie opened huge to $69 million. The Lego Batman film, people thought was going to open even better, opened to $53 million and scratched its way to $300 million worldwide, but the budget's low. This on $21 million, that's not a great opening weekend. I'm sure this wasn't a big budget movie, but this got lesser reviews than the previous two Lego films, and Lord and Miller aren't on board anymore, so... I don't know. I'm sure this movie will make a profit, but this isn't a very good opening. 4,000 theaters. It's a Lego movie. The Lego films usually... I mean, I would have guessed months ago this would have opened at 40 million or something like that, you know? Because if you go back and look when the Lego movie opened, it made 69 million. And then Lego Batman opened to 53. Yeah, 311 million worldwide. I don't see this movie making that, like, even close. I don't even see this making 100 million domestic, which is not good. So, I mean, what's the... Man, I don't know the budget of this film, but, I'd say a disappointing opening weekend. I would assume the studio wanted more than that, than to open at number 3 with 21 million. I don't think that's a good opening, personally. And they did a really poor job of adapting. Oh, no, you're right. Well, yeah, no, it was a manga. I guess Edge of Tomorrow does count. Edge of Tomorrow counts. That's a good one. Edge of Tomorrow is basically an adaptation of a manga. Yeah, no, I agree. The Ninjago movie did look like it was made for TV. I don't even... It's kind of... Okay, It. Let's talk about it, man. 30 million third weekend. That is huge. Once again, this film is performing only on par with The Exorcist. No horror film has done this well since The Exorcist. Now, at this point, it's now going to be considered the highest-grossing horror film of all time, which was The Exorcist before, I believe, at 441 million. Now, once again, if you look at adjusted for inflation, The Exorcist made, like... $900 million domestically. It's one of the most successful films ever. It's literally one of like the 10, 20 most successful films ever made, The Exorcist. A huge portion of the population went to go see that film. It made like $100 million in the 70s. That's back when it was insane to make that kind of money. But, you know, we're talking about box office on the numbers now. We can't just... I can't always bring up... But I'd like to give that context to people, because they're going to read an article where it's just like, it's the biggest horror film ever. And it's like, well, it is, but it's also not. More people probably bought tickets to go see The Exorcist. But that doesn't mean you can't knock the success of this movie. Still, no horror films even come close to this. There's no horror film that's made $300 million domestically, or even $200 that I can think of. Black Swan was the last horror film I think became a big hit. But man, to make this kind of money... I mean, sure, there's The Conjuring and Get Out and stuff like that, but if to make a film like this is crazy. It's gonna make it's about to pass 500 million worldwide. I mean, I really don't want to talk about this movie anymore. It's just a crazy lightning in a bottle success. I don't think anyone's going to be able to repeat it. I think it was a freak accident. I think it was a lot of elements. It was Tim Curry's performance that stayed iconic. It was the book King wrote. It was this freakish obsession with scary clowns people have had that's been growing over the years. It was all those clown sightings. It was a lack of a certain kind of horror film in the multiplexes. It was people wanting... It's this 80s nostalgia thing that Stranger Things and a lot of other movies have kicked off. The Force Awakens tapped into it. There's so many factors that came into this movie making what it has, but That opening weekend pretty much solidified that. 123 million opening weekend. They tapped into a certain market of nostalgia that that every studio wants to tap into. This was marketed perfectly. The release date was genius. Everything about this was smart from the studio standpoint, really. I think they could have spent a little bit more on the movie, like 50, 60 million, and help some of the special effects. But, you know, I don't think they thought it was going to make this kind of money. I'm sure if you would have talked to the studio, they would have said, well, we'll probably make 100 million domestic. We got a lock on that. You know, we might even get to 150 million domestic. Because a lot of the predictions for the opening weekend when the hype was getting big was like 50, 60 million. It made that in its second weekend. And the studio would have been through the roof with that. The fact that it made over 100 million was just overwhelming. I don't think anyone, even the studio, thought this was going to make this kind of money. I doubt at all they thought this was going to make like there's just no way. Nobody at the studio said the It movie's going to make 500 million. No, they're not. Nobody saw this coming. Even the highest predictions were like 75, 80 million opening weekend, which would have been huge. 30 million third weekend, 266 mil domestic. It is going to pass $300 million domestically. I don't know how much higher it's going to go after that. Some of you gave your predictions last week of where you think it's going to end up worldwide, and I heard a lot of 600 millions. I think that's a safe bet. I can see 600 million. With the budget, this is going to be one of the most profitable films of the year. It's going to be fighting with Beauty and the Beast and Despicable Me 3 for the highest profits. But, man, you can't... Jesus Christ, this domestic total is a monster. It's a monster. It doesn't even need the foreign box office. The foreign box office is like secondary icing on the cake because they're already making so much money. No doubt they've broke even already. They've made a profit and then some. They're probably just getting free money every day. They're probably just every day money's just coming into the studio. This has to be amazing for Warner Brothers and New Line and all that. This just has to be overwhelming, the money they're making off this. Yeah, you know, and this is probably the steepest drop. No, it's about the same drop. Wow. So you have a second weekend of 51% and then a third weekend of 50%. So that seems to be the drop. And for a huge opening weekend, a 50% drop, that ain't bad. So if it drops 50% against next, you know, it's going to be 15 million. Which would, you know, and with the day-to-day box office, which is very good for this film, it's going to be over 300 million coming up here soon. So, yeah. This might even get to Spider-Man's numbers domestically, which is crazy. It opened better than Spider-Man. That's insane in itself, honestly, that an R-rated horror film. But kids are going to see this movie. I'm very confused about the target audience. It's kind of a kids' film. It's made for young people, and a lot of people are going to see it, families and like teenagers and kids. Yet it's also kind of an adult film. It's got this weird mix of tones, so it's a weird film to play. Like, I don't know. It's strange. Because I didn't really think it was that hard of an R at all. I thought it was a pretty soft R, in my opinion. Everyone kept saying it was a hard R, but I didn't see it. Still, I don't know what to compare this to. The Exorcist is really the only comparison. I mean, that's what's odd about this. The Exorcist is the last film that caught on with the mainstream. Because, yeah, The Exorcist made 232 million. Now, that's after multiple releases. But back in the 70s, I think, yeah, The Exorcist made like 190. It did like huge because they re-released it in like 75 and 78, but they did that back then because they didn't have VHS and stuff, so you had to go to the theater to see a movie, which does add context. People can stream now and people can pirate films, so that affects the box office a little bit. But still, The Exorcist, I think this film cost $10 million to make. But when adjusted for inflation, which I wouldn't include all of this because some of that total is from a modern release in the 2000s. But still, that film probably made over $500, $600 million domestically adjusted for inflation. I mean, it was just a major success. But since that movie came out in 1973, there hasn't been a horror film this popular in the mainstream. Even Silence of the Lambs and Seven, these films, they were huge hits. I mean, mega hits, like that made a lot of money. They weren't this popular. Let's go back to Silence of the Lambs, which is one of the most successful horror films ever made, and it won Best Picture. Oh, come on. There we go. Silence of the Lambs. Silence of the Lambs made 130 mil in 1991, which was great. And if you look for adjusted for ticket price inflation, 276 million. So I guess you could argue Silence of the Lambs was about as popular as this. And yeah, that's probably the closest comparison we have of Silence of the Lambs, because that's huge. But this is passing that. This is doing better than Silence of the Lambs, which for a lot of people was the benchmark of how successful a horror film could be. But that was also based off a famous novel, so maybe that has a lot to do with it. Still, yeah, $478 million worldwide on a $35 million budget. I'm sure they put a lot of money into marketing. I guarantee you this had a $50 million marketing campaign, but that does not matter. They have $85 million. Let's say they have $90 million in this movie, or $80 million, right? They've still already made a profit, and they're going to make huge profits. Easily 200 mil profit, probably more than that. I'd say 350 million and stuff like that. So it's kind of crazy. Okay, let's see. No, a lot of kids went to go see it. It has a lot of kids. I mean, it's not just adults going to see it as a horror film. It's a lot of people are going to see it. It's just doing well with all audiences. It's not really playing to just one type of audience. They were able to branch it out to all audiences. Thor 3 is not going to bomb, man. I think Thor 3 is going to open to like 100 million and be a huge hit. So that's kind of my feeling. Like, I'm pretty sure, I mean, Black Swan is suspense thriller. You could say that, but it still falls under the category of horror. Like, psychological thrillers and suspense thrillers are still fall under horror films because it does have gore. It's got the blood. It's got the stabbing. It's the twisting of the straws with people where they like to pick what a thrill. Like, a lot of people say Seven's a thriller, and it's like, not really. Seven's a horror movie. It's kind of a thriller, but it's really a horror film. It's about horror. It goes into the horror of humanity. Black Swan is a horror story about this girl. Like, it's a horrifying message. It's not really like, when I think of a suspense thriller, I think of like a Michael Mann movie. Like, I think of like something like Heat. I think of as a thriller. You know, horror deals with certain aspects: the blood, the psychology, the darkness of it, the characterization. And I don't know, I think people try to bend straws on that a little bit too much. They're like, this movie's a thriller, not a horror film. It's like, it's a horror film. Because then you could say Psycho's not a horror film, it's a thriller. And Psycho's a horror film. It's just people want to, those genres get really, you know. No, kids, yeah. No, it isn't that scary. I think a kid could watch it. I really have no issue with young people going to see it. They kind of marketed it as a horror movie. What are you talking about? Do you not remember the trailers for Black Swan? It was totally marketed as a horror film. It showed Natalie Portman pulling a feather out and her looking at the camera with bloodshot eyes, and it looked like she was getting chased by an evil bird, and they would pop up with scary music, like from the director of Requiem. They completely marketed Black Swan like a horror movie. Like, a lot of people went to go see that movie thinking Natalie Portman was going to get killed by some kind of demon or something. Yeah, I've seen Kung Fu Hustle. Yeah, I disagree. I think Black Swan was completely marketed as a horror film. Like, totally. That's how I think it was sold. I went to go see it thinking about it as a horror film. Maybe the critics didn't talk about it that way after film festivals, but if you go back and watch the original trailers for that movie, I think they fall way into horror. They show stuff like horrific images. They show the stuff in the movie that's real quick, like the bird stuff. Well, like the Black Swan. Battle Angel is a manga from Japan. That was also an anime series, Battle Angel Alita. But it's I like Black Swan a lot too. Yeah. But you know, if you know, I remember everyone who talked about that movie, the mainstream, were like, "Hey, I want to go see that movie. I hear it's really messed up and it's got a lot of crazy stuff in it." I don't because really thrillers don't do that well. Audiences are much more attracted to horror films and genre within horror than they are into thrillers. Thrillers aren't actually some of the biggest hits out there. If you actually look at the box office for a thriller, it doesn't do that well. Films usually branch out because people like the horror elements. The age of the thriller is kind of dying on film. Maybe not on television, but in movies. I can't think of the last big hit thriller. Like, American Assassin's like an action movie thriller, and it's just doing okay. I can't really think, yeah, of any that did that well. But I have, yeah, no, that scene where she walks in and all the pictures go crazy, that freaked me out. Yeah, see, to me, that's a horror scene. I totally think of that as a horror scene. But it is, I guess it is a thriller too, though. I will give it that. Thriller's such a weird genre, because it falls under so many categories. It's so strange, because a lot of movies are technically thrillers. You know, but then they have elements from other genres in them. Like, there's comedy thrillers, then there's horror thrillers, then there's drama thrillers. The Others is completely a horror film. It's a ghost story. It's a ghost story, of course. But a thriller. I mean, if you want to call it a thriller, that's fine. Like I said, it's just kind of like bending straws because they fall into a lot of the same category. Like thriller and horror has a... Yeah, Prisoners is a thriller, yes. But a lot of films have the similar elements in a thriller and a horror film. So it's very tough. You know, you could call a lot of horror films thrillers, and you could call a lot of thriller films horror films. It's a very tough... They're two genres that fall into pattern with each other constantly. You could say the first Saw film was a thriller, you know? The Others is a horror film. I totally think The Others is a horror film. It's a classic ghost story. I don't know what you would call The Revenant. I would say a survival movie. I more think it was advertised as like kind of like a blockbuster survival film. I don't really think it was played as a horror film. I don't even think Revenant was marketed as a drama, really. I think it was marketed as like a survival big budget film. I remember that trailer. It's like Leo breathing, and they show all the action in that trailer and them fighting the Native Americans and all that. I mean, it looked like it looked like Saving Private Ryan. You know. No, but you could argue Saw's a thriller. You really could if you wanted to. How Saw is made and structured is more like a thriller in a lot of ways. You could say Saw's a thriller. Like, I agree with you guys, it's a horror movie, but you could say, like, if you watch that film, it's very much a thriller. It very much tries to be Seven and a lot of other thrillers, and it's got a lot of plot. It's about suspense and building up suspense and a mystery. Yeah, it is a horror thriller. Yeah, that's the problem with the genre. They mix with each other very commonly. It's very weird. You know, sometimes you get a straight thriller like Heat, and you would never call Heat a horror movie. But, yeah, I agree with you. Yeah, The Revenant was advertised as a revenge flick. You're right. Yeah, you're right. The Revenant was very much focused on being a horror film. I mean, a revenge film, where they were like, we want to go see Leo kill Tom Hardy. You know, and that's basically what the movie was. It was a revenge film. I'd call Nightcrawler a thriller. Yeah, I'd say Nightcrawler's a perfect definition of a thriller, for sure. I mean, the lead character definitely could be in a horror movie. Jake Gyllenhaal's character could be a horror movie character if they wanted to go there. He's scary. He's scary like a horror character. But the movie itself is more of a thriller. Yeah, No Country's a thriller, yeah. But like I said, the genre, because Anton Chigurh, I would argue, could work in a horror movie like he does in that thriller. You know? A lot of those characters, like Anton, could be a horror movie character. He kind of plays like a horror slasher character in a way. He's kind of a boogeyman, you know? It's what's weird about that genre. They really complement each other. They really go back and forth with that stuff. You know, the Coen brothers, all of their movies, sometimes you're like, was this a thriller or is this horror? You know, because they're playing with all of those genres. Oh, man, the bear scene was all the hype of The Revenant. I mean, I think The Revenant's just that Leo has such box office prowess and people go see any movie he's in. I mean, Leo's last 4 or 5 movies have all been huge hits. I mean, Wolf of Wall Street was a huge hit. He was in Django. That was a huge hit. I think Cormac McCarthy's original novel really plays like horror. I do. I think his original novel, because I'd say like Blood Meridian has a lot of horror elements in it. And I think Anton does play very much. But yeah, it's weird. Horror thriller is kind of its own genre, isn't it? Like there's films that are horror films and thrillers at the same time. It's really interesting. Okay, let's get to the #1 movie, because we're going longer than I wanted to get to this one. And I have a lot to say about Kingsman: The Golden Circle. So, let's go back to a few years ago. Kingsman comes out. Matthew Vaughn's kind of had an okay box office track record. Kick-Ass did not meet expectations at the time. A lot of people back in the day thought Kick-Ass was going to be a $100 million movie. It didn't end up being that way. Stardust did really well because of the foreign box office. Pretty much bombed domestically. Wonderful movie. X-Men First Class underperformed. Had a big budget of $160 million. Did not reach that domestically. Did okay. And I love X-Men. Michael Fassbender and James McAvoy in this movie are incredible. It was great casting, and I think really helped Days of Future Past. But he really didn't have a lot of box office power as a director. He was just somebody that a lot of us liked. Then he comes out with Kingsman: The Secret Service, which is a comic book he had a hand in with Mark Millar. They counter-programmed this film in 2015. It was supposed to come out, I think, late in the year, but they counter-program it. I think it was supposed to come out in like November of 2014. But brilliantly, they released it in February against 50 Shades of Grey, which has a massive opening weekend on Valentine's Day. So they put this for the Guys action movie. I remember going to see Kingsman opening weekend, and it was crazy because everybody was going to see SpongeBob, Kingsman, and 50 Shades of Grey. So Kingsman ended up being Matthew Vaughn's big breakout hit movie that he needed. It cost $81 million. There's been some rumors it cost a little bit more than that, like $100 million. Ended up making $128 million domestic. It actually held really well. Like, it did really well for being an R-rated crowd pleaser spy parody. $414 million worldwide. That's what really put it over the top. It did great at the international box office. It ended up being one of Colin's first most successful movies now. Let's go back and look at it. Yeah, it was, oh wait, worldwide. Yeah, it's his second most successful film he's been in after Mamma Mia. And he's not a real draw. I think Mamma Mia, he plays a very small role. King's Speech, he was the lead. So this is really like Colin's first most successful movie. And he's absolutely terrific in it. So we knew they were going to make a sequel, and Matthew Vaughn does not like to do sequels. He didn't come on for Kick-Ass 2. Bryan Singer came on to Days of Future Past, even though Matthew Vaughn was supposed to direct that film originally. So here we go to Kingsman 2. I think this film had a bad marketing campaign. And you're going to ask me, oh, what's with the marketing campaign, though? So here's the thing. Like, Kingsman, the trailers for this movie made it look way too close to the first film. And I'll say that about, like, War for the Planet of the Apes. We all said this. The marketing was too close to Dawn, so it didn't attract a new audience, and it almost turned people off. Kingsman: The Golden Circle, all the trailers focused on was the action and comedy and all the stuff that everyone loved about the first film. And they didn't really sell you, like, the first film kind of sold you on a mystery of, like, well, I want to see what this movie has in store with Colin Firth and Eggsy and stuff. And then you go see the movie, and it's this total surprise. And it's about a class system, and it's got all these great jokes and this great third act and all that. So it was just very smart and funny. And so this film, I think it's maybe reflective of the film itself. This film's not getting nearly as good of reviews as the first film. Not that the first film got rave reviews. It got like 75% on Rotten Tomatoes. But this film's the worst reviewed film of Matthew Vaughn's career. And a lot of people like Ralph the Movie Maker or Chris Stuxman, people that really love the first film, have come out and said they don't like this film at all. Ralph the Movie Maker said he hated it. He gave it like a 2 out of 10. Everyone's saying it's toneless and it doesn't really capture the spirit of the first film. I think that was reflective in the marketing, because really, this isn't that great of an opening weekend, I would argue. Okay, if you go back and look at that first film, what was great about that opening weekend was that it opened at $36 million, and then in total, it made about $41 million through the holiday. Okay, so it was a huge surprise opening. This film, relying solely on the success of the first film and how much people love it, opened to $39 million. Now, that's really not better than the first film. That's pretty much the same opening weekend, so they didn't expand the audience at all from the previous film. This is the exact same amount of people who went to go see Kingsman 1, and it's probably the same audience who went to go see Kingsman 1. That's not good for a sequel. Now, the budget's not that high at $104 million. I was hearing this film cost like $120, $130 million. It's crazy the budget's so low. But I think the marketing campaign, I talked about this on Twitter, and I got a lot of responses to it because people agreed with me. I thought the marketing for this, every time I saw the trailer in the theater, I never got a sense of the plot, who the villains were. I never got a sense of what made it different from the first film. I never got a sense of what made this separate, why I should go see this, why, if you weren't a fan of the first film. They didn't expand the audience at all in 2 years. This is the same audience. To go from a $41 million opening to a $39 million opening is, you know, and there's no way this is going to have the word of mouth of that first film. Like, this might end up doing okay and get to $100 million, but I think this will do less than the first film, don't you guys? I mean, do you see this reaching $128 million? I don't. Like, I don't think this is going to make $128 million like the first film. I mean, maybe you guys disagree with me, and I could be wrong. I could be wrong. Maybe audiences will love it, but even the daily drops as of right now, I think it should have made more on Saturday. And I could see this next weekend having a pretty steep drop. It doesn't mean it won't do good, worldwide. This has already done $61 million internationally. This could easily make, $350 million worldwide or $400 million worldwide. I'm not saying this won't be a hit. Like, the budget's not high. Although, I swear to God, I heard the budget to this film was way higher than this. I kept reading like $150 million. But I agree with you. The biggest problem with the first Kingsman is the training. Especially that part with the guy and the girl and they go to seduce the chick. That sequence is too long and kind of pointless. Like, there's a point in the training that about 10-15 minutes of it drags on just a little too long, and it takes away from the relationship of Eggsy and Colin Firth's character. And I think if they would have cut just 10 minutes, I think if you'd have cut the first Kingsman down by about 10 minutes, it would have been I think it would have been almost perfect. My biggest issue with that movie, I agree with you, is the training. The training in the middle just drags on too long. It's great at first, but then there's a point where it's like, do we really need 2 or 3 of these sequences showing him training? They don't really add anything. And that they kind of take away from the relationship. Like I said, it's about him and that relationship between those two guys. And that's what makes the third act so good. The third act's like this huge payoff. Luckily, though, the third act, like, once Colin Firth comes back into the movie and has that action scene in the end, like, the whole movie's great. But I do agree there's a lull in the middle of Kingsman I never liked. It gets a little too montage-y, and it's weird because I don't think Matthew Vaughn had that problem with X-Men First Class or with Kick-Ass, but I did feel the length. And this movie, look at this, 2 hours and 21 minutes. Jeez, this movie does not need to be that long, and the reviews are reflective of that. This film should have tried to stick around 2 hours or a little bit. So that's long. It's like a long Bond movie. Oh my god. People are saying this lacks the charm of the original. They're saying that Colin Firth has nothing to do in it. They're saying it doesn't have the same satirical edge, the emotional edge. They're saying it's not as refreshing. I think it's going to play poor with audiences. Not poorly, but I could see this making $100 million and not much more. It would honestly surprise me if this outgrossed the original film domestically. Because even with inflation, yeah, that film made about $140 million, and I just don't see this reaching that. And it should have. All signs, if this film would have been marketed well and released well and it had been a better movie, this film could have opened to $50 million, if not more. So I kept arguing with people on boxoffice.com. You can go to the comments on that thing where they show predictions. And everyone kept arguing with me about it. They're going, man, everyone's predictions are wrong. Because a lot of the predictions for this film was about $40 million. That's what analysts were saying. And somebody kept saying to me, like, I kept getting arguments with other people. They said, no, dude, this is going to open to 55, 60 million. The first film was a huge hit. I go, that's not how sequels work. Just because the first film was a huge hit does not guarantee the second film's going to open better than that. That's not how sequels have ever worked. Ever. Empire Strikes Back did not make as much as Star Wars. Temple of Doom did not make as much as Raiders of the Lost Ark. I think people loved Kingsman. I think Kingsman was a love movie. I disagree with that. I think Kingsman, when it came out, was very popular and loved and did very well. I just think that you gotta branch out the audience. Okay, you can't just rely on that original audience. You know, The Dark Knight didn't just do well because everyone loved Batman Begins. It sold itself as a separate movie from Batman Begins, and the marketing showed nothing of Batman Begins. It was all about The Dark Knight. That's what got people to go see it. Even The Dark Knight Rises, its marketing campaign was very much about showing Bane and that kind of stuff. You know, and that's... And I'm gonna watch... Okay, but that's the thing with sequels, you know? Like, Guardians of the Galaxy 2 is a great example of this. Let's go look at Guardians 2, which I like to bring on. It's not doing that much better than the first film, because I don't think they did a great job of marketing and separating it from the audience who loved the original. And you can't say Guardians of the Galaxy isn't one of the most popular and loved films in the last 10, 20 years. You know, I agree the Joker, but Dark Knight Rises also made $1.1 billion, and that didn't have the Joker in it. And I think that had a lot to do with the great marketing campaign. I think Nolan's a great marketer. Inception had great marketing. Interstellar had great marketing. Dunkirk had great marketing. I mean, Dark Knight Rises did a great job of marketing Catwoman and Bane. Even if you don't like that movie, it had a great marketing campaign. Oh, Batman Begins is a better movie. Totally. But, you know, that's the thing. Nolan knew you couldn't rely on the Batman Begins audience. He sold it on Heath Ledger's performance. And that was the right way to go. And The Dark Knight Rises, he sold it on the whole scale of the movie. And coming to see this grand epic with Batman in it, you know. And, but let's look at Guardians, right? The first film, right? That first film was a huge surprise hit. With inflation, it made $366 million domestic with just inflation, $773 million worldwide, $170 million budget. This film made $200 million profit for Disney. It was a huge success, breakout hit. So everyone said after this film came out, everyone that was a box office analyst said the next film is guaranteed $1 billion. There is no way Guardians 2 doesn't make... You have to say that, right? Like, oh, next film's easily going to open to like 108, 160 mil, make 400 mil domestic, and $1 billion worldwide, So let's look at this. Look how well this film, this film didn't draw apart at all. 55%, 40%, 31%, 39, 21, 35. It held great, right? So let's look at Guardians 2 now. The much anticipated sequel. Okay, domestically, $389 million. $146 million opening weekend. That's about $20 million more than the first film. And the budget is $30 million more. So profit-wise, this is pretty much the same as the first movie. Then let's look at the foreign box office. The last film made $440 million. This film, $473 million. Only $33 million more than the previous film at the foreign box office. The international audience did not... Unless this film hasn't been released everywhere at... Did this not get released in China? Why is the foreign total on Guardians 2 so low? Like, does anyone know? Does anyone have an answer to this, why Guardians 3 foreign box office is so low? Because only doing $30 million more than the previous film is kind of... I'm not going to say it's bad, but it's disappointing. This is not that good. Because really, that means they only grew the audience that little after the first film. Now, I'm kind of confused by this. Really, this only did a little bit better than the previous film. The Kurt Russell de-aging stuff was pretty dope. I'm not saying Guardians 2 is a bad movie. And this is a hit. Don't get me wrong. They made money off this movie. This movie's a huge hit, but really, everyone would have thought this film was going to make 600 mil at the foreign box office and 400 mil domestic. It didn't even come close to doing that. This is they tapped out their audience with the first film. This is showing you that you don't know if the third film's going to make more than this even. It's showing you they didn't really sure, it made about 100 million more than the first film, but it cost more. And they spent a lot of money on marketing, and they probably have to pay Chris Pratt a lot more money back end, and Bradley Cooper and everyone involved is probably getting a lot more money, James Gunn, than they did when they made that first movie. Chris Pratt was a nobody when he made the first flick. He was from Parks and Recreation. Now he's a bona fide movie star. So I don't know. I think this is a fine example of that kind of thing. You're not guaranteed because you make a sequel that it's going to be a much more. Spider-Man 2, Sam Raimi. Go back and look at Spider-Man. Spider-Man 2. Spider-Man 1 was a massive hit that caught on with, Spider-Man 1. Look, 21 million. The second film performed a lot under that. 373 mil. It made 30 mil less domestically. And worldwide, it made 783 million. Now, it was a huge hit. This film got better reviews than the first film. People love Spider-Man 2, and it didn't do as well as the first film. Sequels are never guaranteed to be bigger than the original. I don't know why people... They forget that a lot of it has to do with marketing and release dates. Guardians 1 really caught on with people at that time, and it overperformed. Guardians of the Galaxy, the original, should have never reached 775 million worldwide. Is it Bathory? You're kind of usually on the box office with me. Aren't you confused about the foreign box office of this film? I'm baffled by it. I'm baffled that it didn't even make 500 million. Aren't you? I mean, dude, a lot of people hate Spider-Man. Pretty much everyone craps on the Raimi trilogy now, even though I don't agree with that, but everyone just hates on the Raimi films nowadays, including Spider-Man 1 and 2. People pretend they're just bad movies now, so... Yeah, but that's the thing. You have to wonder, why didn't Guardians 2 branch out like the first film? The first film overperformed. The first film comes out, and nobody thought it was going to make 700 million, and then it does. It's one of Marvel's biggest hits. The merchandise is huge. Kids love it. And the second film comes out, it should be like an Iron Man 3 moment, or, one of those moments where it really doesn't. It didn't do much better than the first film, And I guarantee you Marvel was thinking that film was going to make $1 billion. I'm not saying they're unhappy with the results, but there's no way that Marvel didn't think Guardians 2 was going to make $1 billion worldwide. You'd have to think that. You just have to have that expectation. And that's... Look at this, War for the Planet of the Apes. It's not even performing on par with the first film in the franchise, okay? Does that mean it's a bad movie? No. Sequels are tricky. You have to market them on their own apart from being a sequel to a successful film. Kingsman failed to do this. Kingsman: The Golden Circle All of its trailers were, hey, did you like the first movie? Here's Americans now like Channing Tatum and Jeff Bridges. Let's add more nameless actors that we didn't need. And forget about that we sold the first film kind of on Colin Firth, who was an A-list actor, but not a guy you saw in action movies. And that's what made him really cool in that movie. And Samuel Jackson playing against type. When you see the trailer and you see Channing Tatum kicking butt, it's like, well, that's what he does all the time. And Pedro Pascal, who I love, from Game of Thrones, the Red Viper, that guy should play Zorro. But still, you have 39 million, right? Like, that's not a bad opening weekend. I'm not trying to say this is a bad opening weekend. That's a fine opening weekend. But with the first film's performance, with better marketing, if you got people to go, man, I need to go see that film even if you haven't seen the first one, and it makes you want to go watch the first one. See, I don't think the Kingsman 2 marketing did that. I think when you watch the marketing of this film, it was solely sold on, hey, do you love the first film? Come see the second one. It's more of what you love, more comedy, more action, more of the single shots and all that. It was less of, oh, I really just want to go see that movie. The first Kingsman really sold you on the trailer, like, oh, when Eggsy's stealing the stuff, like the lighter and all that, and you see him doing the flips and stuff, you're like, man, I want to go see what that movie's like. Like, it looks really funny and interesting. I think the trailers were toneless like the film. They were just, the marketing campaign seemed to be, well, everyone liked the first film, so let's just market it to that same audience. When you have a film that cost more, your job should be to show why people need to go see this movie for its own individual reasons. What scenes make it stand out. They never really gave you a good sense of what the second Kingsman even was. Just that they went to go meet the Americans, the statesmen, and that's all it was. It's all I got from the trailers. Because they show Eggsy, they show the Kingsman place get blown up. That's really not that interesting in a trailer. It doesn't make you go like, huh, I wonder how that happened. You just see the results of it. You're like, oh, wow, they blew up where Eggsy lived. Just crap. And then they go meet the American. That's not really a way to sell the trailer. The first trailer really sold you on this kid who was a poor kid, underclassed, and Colin Firth training him, and you wanted to see all that stuff worked out. It didn't really sell me on seeing how their base got blown up and him meeting the statesmen. Like, I don't think it looked that compelling. It looked like a fun, dumb action movie, but the original Kingsman didn't rely on being a fun, dumb action movie to sell itself. It sold itself more as a genre-bending comedy. I think Baby Driver had a great marketing campaign in that way. I think here this once again not a bad opening weekend, but this could have opened to 50 million or 60 million with better marketing. This could have opened a lot better. Even if the film's word of mouth isn't that great and the reviews are lesser, this still could have opened a lot better in my opinion. I think they could add a $55 million opening, but they did a poor job of handling the brand. They didn't nurture it. And they didn't know how to market it outside of how they handled the first film, and that was a mistake. Love Jane Goldman, love her giant boobies, love Matthew Vaughn, big fan of Matthew Vaughn. He's one of my favorite directors out there. I haven't seen this film yet, but I'm not excited. I am definitely going to go see it, and I'll review it, but I'm upset. I was so pumped for this movie, and I was totally surprised by how good the first one was, and I'm upset. And it's reflecting in the box office. This isn't a disappointing opening weekend, but it's not. It's nothing to praise. It's just okay. Even here. Let's see here what they say in this thing here. Okay. The first Kingsman turned its 36 million debut into 128 million with a 3.5 multiplier. Should Golden Circle follow suit, we're talking about 138 million plus, which would surely satisfy the folks at Fox if it can match the first film's 286 million performance. And I do think it's going to match that foreign performance. I definitely think it's going to make 250 million internationally. Kingsman played huge. But, you know, like this saying here, the opening improves on the 36 million on the first film, but the film's performance over the next couple of weeks will tell the true story. Yeah, I don't really think this is that, like, they're saying that. I don't agree. Really, when you adjust ticket inflation and you look at that first film when it opened in the extra day, it pretty much had the same opening weekend as this movie. It really didn't, it wasn't that much of an improvement. It's kind of the same opening weekend, which is not good for a sequel like this, like that they got the exact same amount of people to go see it. They said that it got a B+ cinema score, which isn't bad. That's actually higher than what I thought. But yeah, there's not much analysis on here. Let's go to Deadline. Maybe we can find what they have to say about it. I think, I don't know, I think Kingsman's going to be a hit. I think 350 million worldwide, if not more, is going to be a lock. But I'm not really sure if this is, you know, I think they were hoping for a little bit more. I don't think they were hoping on opening on par with it. That's not a bad opening weekend, but it's just kind of like, well, 30 million, 9 million with Channing Tatum and Jeff Bridges, and it's a sequel, and So not Guardians did 99 mil in China, but it wouldn't have made more if it weren't for a Bollywood movie about female wrestlers. Oh, so yeah, but aren't you still shocked Guardians didn't do that much better outside of China? Like I would have expected $600 million foreign was a lock. I really would have. I'm shocked how low it actually did. It didn't perform that well at the international. That's a low foreign total for a film like that. I'll never understand China too, like Warcraft. You know. But let's see what they say here on Deadline. They're pretty good of giving the most nuanced approach to these things and finding a real. Let's see what they have to say, because I think people need to talk about this Kingsman sequel and how it was a failed. It was, you know, it's a failed marketing attempt to really, because they literally just relied on the popularity of the first film. They did a horrible job of branching this out. Okay, let's see what they say here. Worldwide starts at 100 million. Okay, here we go. Finance sources believe the movie will still be fine profit-wise, though it's lower than the 40 mil plus the industry was expecting. A lot of people were predicting 40 to 45 million, if not more. Is calling its third weekend at 30 million down a sweet 50% for running Cube by Sunday of 206. Yeah, what the heck are they talking about? Okay, Golden Circle's 3 day is bigger than its first chapter, 2015's Kingsman, by 6%, and that's a little something for Fox to crow about. Secret Service opened during a holiday weekend where Valentine's Day, a huge movie-going day, fell on a Sunday, so the fact the sequel can put up slightly better numbers on a non-holiday weekend is worth noting. I disagree. I don't think that's worth noting at all. I think the fact that the first one was such a big film is a reason this opened well. I don't think, like, because it's not a holiday weekend. That's silly. Rivals were betting the Golden Circle would arrive in the high 40s, possible 50. That's what I was expecting too, 50 million. But Fox always knew that they would be fortunate if Golden Circle crossed 40 million. Essentially, Rivals' bullish estimates stem from their overt assessment of the current marketplace. No, it's because the Golden Circle's marketing should have been better and the film should have opened to 50 million. That's what it should have opened to. Golden Circle edging out Secret Service can be attributed to the fact that the title is now a known quantity, further boosted by audience. Well, they're praising it like this was a great opening weekend. I guess I disagree with Deadline. I don't think this is that great of an opening weekend. I think 39 million is like kind of like okay for what it is. But when that's weird. Golden Circle does a very similar. Yeah, I was expecting Deadline to be a little bit harsher, but they seem to be praising. People take inflation grosses way too seriously. The way you're going is every movie's released. It will be a bomb because it can't beat movies released prior from the 60s, 70s, 80s. Well, it doesn't make a movie a bomb. It just gives context, man. You need context. Without the context, you don't really know. This isn't a bad result for Kingsman, a sequel that increased budget. Yeah, I agree. This guy gets it. This is a bad result. Increased budget, added big stars, isn't coming off an original movie which supposedly had good word of mouth, good legs, and a built-in audience on home video. This is selling the same amount of tickets as the original with its small bump in gross only from inflation. That's it. The gross is only bumped by 3 years of ticket inflation. Think the original had an IMAX premium screens. I don't think the original had IMAX premium screens either. We know sequels are more front-loaded, which means this is a guaranteed to gross less than the original in the end. They should have had a huge bump in gross just as Guardians 2 did, as Kingsman 3 seems unlikely at this point unless the foreign numbers are also increased that the domestic ones didn't. And that's totally true. I agree with that. I think that guy in the chat, in the comment section, nailed it. This is not a great branching out from the first film. This is the same opening weekend. And that's the first film's opening weekend was a surprising opening weekend. People didn't know Kingsman was going to be a big hit. People expected this movie to do well. So it is under a different context. And I do think Kingsman 3 is up in the air. That doesn't mean it won't happen, but I think if it does happen, it'll happen on like a $65 million budget. I swear to God, Kingsman 2 cost more than... Let's look at Wikipedia and a couple other sources. I swear they have... Yeah, 104 million, huh? That's weird. I swear I thought the budget was like... You think the budget would have been higher than that simply just because, where are we at on this? 149. Okay, I need to wrap this up. I didn't want this to reach 2 hours, and we're getting to that point. So, do you guys have any questions real quick before I get out of here? Because, you know, I didn't want this to go long. I've been trying to keep these under 2 hours. I said I wanted to keep it more of an hour or under, but I didn't even get to Kingsman until the hour mark. But there's just so much. I have like 15 minutes to say about every movie, so it's a little rough. But if you guys have any quick questions, I will answer them real fast. But they keep hiring hacks they can control and then make these movies by committee and wonder why they come out like... Yeah. I'm not going to swear on here, but even though I want to. But yeah, just real quick, if you guys have any questions real quick, throw them in the chat. And I could try and... The American flag, in my opinion, represents your freedom to treat that flag however you damn well please. Alright, Chris Ray Gunn. Thank you for your insightfulness. That's wonderful. Thank you so much. The wisdom of Chris Ray Gunn. Sure is a genius. Oh, Napoleon Dynamite memes. Yay. Okay, let's see. Alright. I agree, but when you take something that is beloved and crap all over it, they are screwing themselves. Oh, no, it's not bad if you swear, dude. You're allowed to swear in the chat. I'm just trying not to swear in the video because they demonetize these videos and I spend like 2 or 3 hours on them and it ticks me off that they demonetize them just because I say a few swear words. Also, I don't like relying on swear words, but I do hate that they're so strict. They're word Nazis, but it's okay if you swear in chat, dude. It's fine. You guys can swear all you want. I'm not gonna censor you. Is society experiencing superhero film burnout? No. No, they're not. Spider-Man and Wonder Woman and Guardians are all huge hits, so no. I wish they were. I would like less superhero movies, but I don't really see a burnout happening. Newest bombs coming ahead. What do you think? What do I think is going to be a big bomb coming out? I don't know. Oh, Jesus Christ, Chris Ray Gunn. Same goes for the people pissed at people who are pissed. They're football players. Football sucks immensely. Go watch Kingsman. Kingsman 2 sucks. Quit trying to be hip with everything you say. Yeah, seriously. Like, stop it, Chris. It's that, oh, I don't watch sports because I couldn't play them because I have the body type of a 12-year-old boy, so let me crap on football. Imagine getting pissed at a bunch of meatheads who get concussed for a living or kneeling at a cloth. People need to lighten the hell up. Yeah, no, your freaking hip pose like, oh my god, I'm going to be the middle ground and all this. Shut up, dude. Come on Twitter and complain about how you can't make another video for fucking 5 weeks. Oh, I just swore. No! No! No, Chris Ray Gunn! No! You got me! You got me, you bastard! Darn! Chris Ray Gunn made me swear. Ugh. No, it's just one thing I hate about Twitter. I hate Twitters like that, where everyone tries to be clever and hip, like the shoe on heads or Chris or other people. Like, I'm gonna be quirky. I'm gonna say Kingsman's awesome. You should go see this sequel and not watch football. Football's stupid. It's guys hitting each other. It's for simpletons. They're not like me. I read literature and comic books and watch great art. I don't like them sports like basketball and football. It's like, dude, shut up. Please shut up. Go eat Twizzlers. Go eat Twizzlers and hang out with Lacey Green all day and quit and just shut up. Like, seriously. Just because you're not into physicality and sports doesn't mean the rest of us don't have to be into it. Before you head out, I want to just say I love your stuff, Pat. Hey, thanks, man. I'm sorry that I trigger you. I don't mean to. What movies are you feeling more eager to see in theaters that are coming up? Like, what kind of movie? I do like... I'm kind of... I mean, not really much of anything, but I guess, like, the Baby Drivers and stuff like that. Like, the Get Outs. I'm glad that there's, like, this scene for indie films, indie genre films that seems to be growing again. Oh, I know. I mean, not that I would call Chris Ray Gunn really a celebrity. He's an internet celebrity. That's not really... you know, I wouldn't really go as far to call him a celebrity. I'd call him an e-celeb. But since I've kind of left the skeptic community, I'm starting to see how these guys really are. Just like, oh my god, they're awful. None of them are funny or insightful. They don't really know much about politics. And then they just come on Twitter and pretend that they're saying something, but that's been said much better. No, like, look, oh, look how quirky Chris Ray Gunn is. Good morning, Twitter. Oh, look, it's like, it's just normie Twitter 101. It's like being a 15-year-old on Reddit and your fans just praise you for it because they don't know any better. You don't have to be smart to be just somewhat literate. I'm not literate at all. I'm stupid. So, any movies? I don't know. Indie genre flicks. I don't mean to trigger people. At least, you know, I just have a hard time not stating my opinion. I'm really bad at not stating my opinion. I did a whole video where I crapped on Ridley Scott for like 35 minutes, and it made a lot of people angry, because a lot of people love Ridley Scott, and they love the Alien franchise, and I pretty much insulted the entire fan base with that video. So, it's definitely not... I've definitely been unpopular with a lot of people. But I'm just... nothing annoys me more than this Twitter cringe thing. Like, look how hip and funny I am. It's like... the lack of self-awareness... No, of course it's not about the flag, and it's not them telling Trump not what he can do. They're protesting Trump. They think it's a protest to Donald Trump, because none of them kneeled when Colin Kaepernick was doing it. They're only doing it now that Trump tweeted about it. That's all it is. It's just a response to Donald Trump. Like, I saw a lot of people going like, oh, Colin got all... Oh, God, now I'm talking about politics. I gotta stop. This isn't good for the box office stream. Yeah... I hope you don't watch Anita Sarkeesian videos. If you like Anita Sarkeesian, you can just leave, because she ruins movies and videos. She doesn't understand art on a basic level. So how dare you, sir? You can just get out of here. I don't care if you're a feminist and you like but Anita, no. Anita is just full of lies. Everything she says is just total lies. Like she finds things that aren't in video games. She doesn't even interpret movies right. She'll talk about a film, and I'm like, that's not what that movie's about, Anita. That's not what that movie's about at all. It has nothing to do with that. Oh, I can't believe my Covenant review has 51,000. Yeah. The patriarchy's coming out. The patriarchy werewolf. Yeah, I know. I know that's what's happening. Hey, man, I'm not a huge Lauren Southern fan either. I agree. She's just kind of a normie. She only gets by on the fact that she's cute and she says stuff that the red pillars want to hear, but she's not... I've never been a fanboy of people who are right-wing people either. Like, it's not like I just automatically love Sargon and everyone like that. I think a lot of them suck, too. Shoe-on-Head's terrible. Her content's awful. She's not funny. She doesn't know anything about what she's talking about. She contradicts herself constantly. She makes 8-minute clickbait videos. And that's what happens over and over again. I mean, Chris Ray Gunn's always on Twitter complaining about how he can't get inspired to make some video, and then he makes some 10-minute video that's the same 10-minute video you've seen over and over again, and he's just doing jokes and content that I covered in my videos months ago. Sargon does this too. I swear I think these people go skim through smaller channels. Like, I remember I covered the superhero weight thing, like, the day it happened, and then, like, a month later, Andy Worski makes some terrible video on it. With his Asian friend Chris, and they just make stupid faces and jokes for 20 minutes, and it's like, I said all this stuff a month ago. It's just typical YouTube stuff. These hey dude, the skeptics are con artists too that are making money off what's popular. I have no problem saying that. They don't really care. They only jumped on the bandwagon because it was popular. They only jumped on the Trump train because it was popular. That's what they're all doing. If you think that yeah, the Covenant review got a lot of people here. That was a big one. But I'm so sick of, like, their whole little group think, the skeptic community, how they all live in a bubble. And I'm so tired of their crap. I just had to get out of it because it became just as bad as the SJW group think. It became like you had to believe everything one way and you couldn't criticize each other. It basically became like, oh, you can't say bad things about Shoe-on-Head or Armored Skeptic or Sargon. It's like, I'm sorry, you guys keep making crappy videos. There's videos from SJWs debunking some of their videos that are decent videos that actually show the faults in their arguments and in the way that they edited things. And I got kind of tired of being part of it because you have to be held to a higher standard when you do political content. People really look out for hypocrisy and when you misconstrue things, and that happens so much. Because they try to simplify it down to just discussing humor or context, but you can't simplify it down to just those elements. And that's the struggle I was finding, was how to find a way to articulate those things. I think it's a lot easier to talk about movies and video games and TV shows. So that's how I feel. Oh, you came from the Dark Tower video. Hey, man, nice. That Dark Tower video that everyone called me racist for. That was amazing. I remember that time. That was a good time. Was just one person after another. You're a racist because you wanted the character to look like what he looks like in the books. Yeah, that's really screwed up that I wanted a guy to look like what he looks like to me when I read the books and when I saw the illustrations for 20 years of my life. Yeah, they are. I stopped. That's why I kind of quit being a skeptic. It became a meme. Like, the skeptic community, the anti-SJW, they're just as stupid and pointless as SJWs, and they've become redundant. Once the SJW scene kind of died off and it became more serious about global politics, geopolitics, everyone showed how stupid they were. They didn't actually know anything about politics. And, you know, I'd rather listen to people that have better formed opinions. I'm so sick of this, like, you know, this false intellectualism, this pseudo-philosophy that comes from these people, you know, that they're like a T.J. Kirk. T.J. Kirk's a nobody. The Amazing Atheist is a nobody. He dropped out of high school. He only ever had one job, ever. I like Idris Elba, too. I just think he was a bad casting job as Roland. I think he totally... They cast Idris Elba because he's really cool-looking and awesome. That's not how you should cast Roland. Roland shouldn't be really cool-looking and awesome. It's not just the race, dude. It's Roland in general. Roland shouldn't be a badass cowboy who's big and muscular like Idris Elba. Like, cool. Idris Elba looks cool. That kind of goes against the whole thing of what made Roland an interesting character. He's not your cliche, cool, awesome cowboy action hero. He's a very gray guy with scars. And all that stuff. You know, it's not Idris Elba's acting ability. It's not even getting the basis of Roland right from the inception of the idea. They didn't even understand Roland's character from the books. They didn't get it. Roland shouldn't be this cool, big, black guy you can kill, but he shouldn't be awesome. Like, Idris Elba's awesome. I love Idris Elba. He's too cool, though. Like, you know... Dude, you know, my SJW stuff, it was, I mean, that's more, you know, it's more satire. You know, the patriarchy was very much a satirical character and comedic. He wasn't really, like, anyone who takes those videos seriously, it's just really funny to me, because they're not serious videos at all, the patriarchy video. I care much more about my Unbreakable video than I do about most of the political stuff, because that was, you know, I went after celebrities. And I went after Hollywood, and I ended up being right about a lot of the stuff I said. I made predictions like 6 months ago, and almost all of them have come true when it came to what would happen with the political climate we're in, especially with movies. I was predicting the fall of the summer. I knew celebrities were going to keep just ramping up stuff, and I'm just tired of it. You basically just end up making the same video all the time. You complain about a feminist. You complain about some protest. You complain about some MTV News video. And it's the same video you're making over and over again. How many videos can I make on Anita Sarkeesian? How many videos can I make? It just got boring. It's like dead content. It's dead. There's nothing to talk about it anymore. There's no new things coming out about it. It's the same people saying the same things. Nothing's changed. So, and I'm kind of tired of it. Yeah, I got sick of it, and I got sick of it now, and I hate them all on Twitter, and I'm tired of the groupthink. I'm still a fan of some people. I still really like Naked Ape. I think Naked Ape's a very good channel. Oh, dude, yeah. Well, like, I'm gonna disagree. Yeah, you know, it's... Yeah, I think I made some good points. I was definitely wrong in a lot of those videos. Some of those patriarchy videos, I'm just like, I had some stuff wrong. But, you know, you mess up. You mess up. That's what made me... I was tired of being a hypocrite, though. I was tired of getting things wrong. I don't like getting the facts wrong, and that was really starting to bother me ethically. I felt like I was presenting a narrative without giving all the sides to it, and I tried... I don't know. I felt like I lost my... I was losing what the content was. I didn't know if it was funny or if I was being a political guy. And it's hard to do both. I didn't really know if I was political or if I was funny, and I got tired of having that contradiction with myself. I got tired of the fightings with it. What do you think of Hollywood reimagining versus faithful adaptations? It depends. It depends on if the original... you know... Most of the skeptics... Oh, yeah. I mean, yeah, a lot of people seem... I mean, you guys got to know that the SJW content's what built this channel up originally. You know, originally, the videos that did well, they got 100,000 hits were my Smugly Puff video and my Bud Light video. So, like, you know, it took a while before I started off doing movie videos, and nobody watched them. I used to do movie reviews and movie videos, and I got no hits. So then I complained about Ghostbusters one day, and then that did really well, and then I came up with the Patriarchy, and that caught on. But it was never because I wanted to necessarily do political content. I kind of just fell into it. Oh, the successes definitely went to Sargon's head. He's become like borderline a cult leader, like with his success. But that's what happened to me. I kind of fell into it like a lot of YouTubers do. And it took I mean, really, it wasn't until that Alien Covenant video that anybody watched my channel for movie reviews. It wasn't until that and my Aliens video, like that stuff, where people said, "Oh, wow, you talk about movies, cool." Because, you know, yeah, you probably, yeah, I think I used to do these box office videos back in the day. I used to do the box office report back in like 2016. I used to, and nobody watched them. I'd get like 20 hits a video where I talked about the box office, and nobody watched them. So I said, well, crap, this doesn't do well. That's basically, you know, it's because when you're making videos that nobody's watching, you're masturbating. That's all I was doing. Back then when I made videos, I was masturbating because nobody was watching me talk about the box office or about Stranger Things or anything. So it's like, why make that video? It's just me talking for my own sake. I don't like that. I don't like masturbating like that. So I said, okay, well, people started like the political stuff. I just think that whole scene burnt out, and I think my channel reached a certain peak with it. And then I think the movie content is a lot more consistent. I think my strengths come out in the movie content more so than they did in the political content. I miss the comedy of being the Patriarchy. I miss the funny stuff. I used to be a lot funnier back then. Hey man, I'm glad you say that. I agree, although that sounds arrogant. I do think I'm a lot better than some of these channels that have 1 million subs. And I'm not trying to say, I think there's a lot of small channels that are better. I'm not saying it's just my small channel, but like, I much prefer my stuff to like Screen Junkies or Collider. And I don't even dislike those guys that much, but I don't know how those guys are in the millions. And then a lot of other channels that have much better content for the same kind of stuff, they just have nobody. But those guys are LA based and they get celebrities on there. Who knows, you know? It's a lot easier to get hits on a video when you make clickbait stuff like Honest Trailers or CinemaSins. Like, I could make videos like that. I could make like, this movie sucks. You know, Alien Covenant, my Alien Covenant vid did really well because I put in the thing, Alien Covenant sucks, right? Dark Tower sucks. I mean, I could make a video every day that would get, I guarantee you, I'm not lying to you, could probably get 50,000 hits if I just put up, this movie sucks. Like if I put up Dunkirk, Christopher Nolan's Dunkirk sucks, Spider-Man Homecoming sucks, and I talked about why it was bad, guaranteed hits. Guaranteed. You know, if I did a deep dive on numbers, what do you mean if I did a deep dive on, I'm not sure what that means. I'm sorry, you might have to articulate that a little bit better. I'm not 100% sure what that question means. I do know more than one of them. They don't watch movies. They only watch Star Wars, Aliens, Indiana Jones. I don't dislike Honest Trailers. I think Honest Trailers is fun. It's just, it is clickbait. When you make something that's all about crapping on something, people click on that. People love the negative stuff. You get endorphins when you hear people complain. Like, I don't make a lot of negative videos anymore. Like, a lot of my videos are talking positively about movies. I'm like, hey, go watch Unbreakable. Go watch Man on the Moon. But, you know, I could make an It review that's very clickbaity. You know, I could make a Stephen King video that's very clickbaity, but I don't like that. I want to be like Red Letter Media. I want to build my brand up of quality. Red Letter Media, Half in the Bag originally wasn't a big thing. It caught on because their stuff was so good. You know, they didn't rely on that stuff. Oh man, the video game industry is like dead as far as I'm concerned. Not in the PC world, but if you're talking about console games, yeah, stagnant. Are you kidding? Yes. That's been going on for a while. Video games have been falling apart for a while now. Go watch Razorfist channel. He's covered this far better than I can. And I've gotten arguments with Razorfist on Twitter, and I think he's a very petty guy, but his articulation on the video game industry is absolutely dead on, and he articulates why it's been falling apart for pretty much 10-15 years. I think the Kong Skull Island director is a jerk. I think he's a jerk. And I think he's idiotic and childish, and I think he made no good points with that. What do you think of the channel? I like storytellers. I like storytellers, and I like Just Right, and I like Every Frame's a Painting. That's a very good channel. I like Ralph the Movie Maker. I like Collective Learning. That's Rob Ager. He has a very good channel. I like a lot of those channels. I'm just not a big fan of the movie blogger channels where it's 4 people sitting at a table not really saying anything. Yeah, they are. They'll be like, the guy directed that movie, and they won't know who it is. And you'll be all deep pull, some director I never heard of. Oh man, I'm like the go-to guy of deep cuts. I agree, Pat. The amount of content that Screen Junkies is releasing is bigger than the actual quality of the content. Yeah, they have to make a video about everything. It's like they make 8 videos on J.J. Abrams coming back on the Star Wars thing. I made 1 video about J.J. Abrams coming back on the Star Wars thing. They'll make 9 videos on Colin Trevorrow. I made 1 video on Colin Trevorrow because there's not a bunch of things to say about it. There's only one discussion to have, but they make those videos because they get hits. You can make you know, you can keep making videos over and over again about Star Wars all you want, but none of us want to admit there's nothing to really talk about with the new Star Wars. There's almost nothing to talk about, but we all keep making videos on it, you know. I could make 20. There's this one channel, Hybrid Network. They're a perfect example of this. When I did my Alien video, they made an Alien Covenant video every day for a month. For a month, they would make an Alien Covenant vid with mundane, pointless crap. They're doing it now with It and Pennywise. Just because everyone's searching on YouTube for It content, they'll make a video over and over and over where they're making the same points over and over, and they don't have anything to say. It's like, you already made your point about this movie. Okay, there's only 3 or 4 things you're going to be able to say about it. Okay, there's not that much to go into. And you know, it ticks me off they don't know deep cuts. Like, that's my biggest problem with movie fights. Like, when you watch a movie fight, all the movies they reference or talk about or bring up are a movie that everyone knows, and they never pull out any deep. Even the questions are, and I'm not saying they have to do what I want them to do. It's their show and it does well, but I know it works. I know it works. I agree. My channel would be much bigger if I had done that from the beginning. Even with the patriarchy, if all my videos had been clickbait, they would have done a lot better. You know. Oh, wow, we're over 2 hours. I broke my rule. Thanks, you jerks. But, you know, I guess I did need to give some clarity. I know it works, man. Hey, dude, clickbait works. Anyone who tells you clickbait doesn't work is a liar. I love when people come onto my videos sometimes and they say this is clickbait. And I'm like, you mean like every YouTube video that's ever done well on YouTube? Yeah, wow. Crazy, you caught me. Like, what do you think big YouTube channels do? It's clickbait. You put up the stuff that people want to talk about that's current, and that's what I think the channel is growing. I think Please Rewind's growing. There seems to be a lot more people coming into it. It just takes a little while for the word of mouth. You know. No, it's okay. No, I'm just kidding. No, I know it's about views. Yeah, it is. It is about views. I know. And YouTube, yeah, it's money. They have a lot of employees at Screen Junkies. They have to pay those people. So that makes sense. You know, I get that. I don't have anyone that works for me, so I just kind of do my own thing. But I don't know. I feel like outside of like Ralph the Movie Maker and a couple other people, nobody's honest. Everyone's so they give like everyone's so passé about Star Wars or so passé about Ridley Scott or they give a pass, or they don't ever acknowledge, you know, where cinema's going or anything. That's very weird to me. I don't like this, like, I don't like the safe film critic. I don't like the film critic who doesn't want to actually be a critic. I like criticism. Movies, you know, when you're a film critic, your job's not to come on and just blindly praise something. It's to give a point of view that you found that maybe someone else hadn't found before. You're not supposed to sit there and just spew out the Rotten Tomatoes consensus. Yeah, I think if I can get up past 5,000... Problem is, like, at least 2,000 or 3,000 of my subscribers joined on because of the patriarchy. And I'm not making patriarchy videos right now, so a lot of them are upset because they're into that. And, but, you know, I'm trying to reshape the channel. But if we can get past 5,000, if we can get to 10, I think 10's a pretty sweet spot. Because I think then that'll be enough people watching regularly that we don't have to really... Because, I don't want to be a big channel, because when you become a big channel, you get that responsibility with it. Like when you get, you know, when you get 500,000 subscribers, you have to start, I don't know, it's just a different kind of, you have so many people watching your stuff. It gets to your head a little bit. I don't want to be that kind of channel. I want to be a guy who just states my opinions very individualistically, apart from the mainstream. I don't want to just say the Rotten Tomatoes consensus. I don't want to just like every filmmaker that everyone likes. I don't want to praise every movie that everyone loves blindly. I don't want to hate on movies that everyone hates. I think there's a lot of good movies out there that get too much crap. That's something I see too. I think what I want to do with my channel is that I want to show people that films go beyond the franchise genre stuff. I think what's happened with the internet and with a lot of these movie channels is they've narrowed the film conversation down to just talking about George Lucas and Star Wars and Spielberg and Alien. And, I mean, it's like we talk, or Marvel. All movies are about superhero movies. I'm sick of talking about superhero movies. I'm sick talking about Star Wars. I have nothing to say about Star Wars. I've had 100,000 Star Wars conversations. There's nothing I could say that I haven't said when I was 15. I've already talked in detail about these superheroes because I read comic books. I've already had these conversations. And I'm so sick that the film conversation's gone that way. It's gone completely to these clickbait videos where you're talking about franchise films and cinematic universes. You don't talk about film anymore. We're not talking about movies. No one talks about movies anymore. You know, that's why a film like Unbreakable doesn't get a bunch of, a bunch of hits like it should, because people want to hear about Star Wars, They want to hear about what's happening right now. People are so current. And you have to make current videos. You have to make an Alien Covenant vid because that's what's popular right now. You have to make a Spider-Man video because that's what's popular right now. You have to talk about horror films and marketing. You can't just talk about film in a scope of 100 years of movies. You can't talk about the 20s or 30s or 40s or 50s or 60s or 70s anymore. That's what it is. It's geek culture. It's a lot of those things coming together. It's the mainstream attitude about these things. It's everyone's a movie nerd now. Everyone's into movies. And yeah, that Simba video basically came out of me waking up. Even though a lot of people for some reason think I ripped that off from Confused Matthew. Confused Matthew made that Lion King video 10 years ago. Do people think I remember Confused Matthew? Everyone kept bringing up Confused Matthew to me. Like, dude, he did this. I go, when? And I went and looked up his video. I was like, man, I think I saw this 10 years ago, but I always felt that way about Simba. Like, I didn't go rip off some guy's 10-year-old video. Like, that didn't... that wasn't my plan. I didn't know I forgot he made a whole video crapping on Simba 10 years ago. I don't remember YouTube 10 years ago. But, what happened was I was on Twitter the night before, and I was just ranting. Here's how my channel works. Okay, let me explain my channel to some of those other movie channels. And I think I can explain the difference here and what it is. Because I love movies so much, whatever movie I'm thinking about the day of, that's what movie ends up on the channel. Like, the night before, I was on Twitter talking about Disney movies and The Lion King. So I got up the next day and said, man, I need to make that video about all that crap I said about Simba. And that's what I did. I was having a conversation with my friend about Unbreakable and how good it was. And I said, okay, my next video is going to be on Unbreakable. That's how I make my videos. It's whatever movie or feeling I'm into at that time. Like, I'm like, you know what? God, I'm really obsessed with this movie I love right now. Oh, I should do a video on it. Or this thing that I hate. Oh, Simba. It was just bothering me that day. It was nagging me, so I made a Simba video. I didn't go to Hollywood Reporter or go look at Variety and say, oh, that's what's popular right now. Let me do a video on that. Let me talk about what everyone else is talking about. I don't want to do that. I hate that. And I'm not saying I'm better than those people or it's like arrogance or anything like that. Aside from Fantasia, my favorite, Little Mermaid, Great Mouse Detective, Aladdin, Sleeping Beauty, Snow White, obviously. Big fan of all those movies. Let me think. Because, I'm sorry, there's just so many Disney films. I'm trying to think about what specifically are the ones that I really love. It's Fantasia's the easy #1 for me. Yeah, no, that's the thing, yeah. Yeah, that's the thing. I just talk about what I'm passionate about. That's where the patriarchy came from. That's why I got sick of doing the patriarchy, because you had to cover stories that were popular that week with politics. You couldn't just talk about what interested you, which is what I like to do. When I originally started the patriarchy, I just crapped on Paul Feig because I hated Paul Feig and his political stuff. Then as it went on, we all have to kind of you know, I had to talk about people I don't want to talk about. I don't want to talk about Anita Sarkeesian. I just don't. She's boring. She's not worth talking about. And everybody overhypes the impact or influence she has. She has no influence, and she's boring. She's not worth talking about. And stuff like that. I don't know. That's, I don't know. That's just where I'm at with it. I more want to go after the mainstream in a Hollywood sense than I want to go after the mainstream in a political way, because I think everyone's arguing politics. I want to go after why Hollywood movies are lazy and suck now. I want to go after this mainstream attitude towards movies, this lack of serious film discussion, this lack of serious film criticism. The online critic is really turned out to be a bad thing in a lot of ways. Because these guys, they're not really movie people. They don't have a background in that stuff, and then they just start making movie videos, but they're not really movie lovers. They don't really make movies. There's some, you know, they say they do, oh, I'm a failed screenwriter. Oh, I'm somebody who's trying to, you know, like how Mundane Matt does. But they really don't know anything about movies. They don't ever talk about Bergman or Tarkovsky or, they don't really even talk about Charlie Chaplin much. They don't talk about, you know, I'm not saying they're not smart, interesting people, but they don't really talk about film that much. They just talk about the movie industry more like there's some great filmmaker. And they don't. Yeah, I would love to do some Stephen King stuff. That's not a bad idea. I don't know. I'm just more confused anymore. I really don't know what YouTubers want. I want to make good content, but it's like people don't want certain kind of content. They want you to make 8 to 10 minute long videos that say the same things. They don't want you to do long videos that are very opinionated. People don't like opinionated videos. They don't like when you're pretty set in your opinions too. You know, I'll argue anyone about a movie. If you disagree with me on a movie, I'll argue tooth and nail. You know, that's why I'd love to be on Movie Fights. If I was on Movie Fights, I don't even want to go on Movie Fights to praise the film that I like. I want to go on there to crap on great movies that other people pick. That would be, yeah, you're right. They are. Most of the big movie channels don't have. I don't know. I'm assuming it's because a lot of teenagers watch YouTube and they don't want to watch, you know, they probably haven't seen half the movies that some people talk about. They probably just, you know, they go to see Marvel movies, which is fine. But I am tired of it. I am sick of it. Anyway, we do have a new show coming out, 3 Course Cinema. I will be doing this with my friend Paul and other guest stars who will come on weekly. Let me tell you the guys of the pitch of the show so you guys can get ready for it. We're going to be watching 3 different films over the month. Yeah, I know everyone does do 8-minute. We're going to be watching 3 films every month starting in October. And we're going to have a theme for each month. Our first month theme is Carpenter films. So we're going to watch 3 John Carpenter films in October. Here's how we're going to do it. Me and Paul or another guest are going to come on and play the DVD live. And we're going to do a live DVD commentary on a live stream chat with you guys involved. And you guys can ask us questions and add your tidbits to the movies while we're talking about them. And then at the end of it, I haven't seen that channel. Thank you for recommending it. And then like next week's going to be like genre, where me and Paul get to, we look at, you know, let's say comedies, and we watch 3 comedy films that month, or 1 month's dedicated to one actor, and we watch 3 of those actors' works. And you guys, after we get the series going, are going to get to vote on what the 3rd movie is. One movie's going to be picked by me at a point. One movie's going to be picked by my guy who works with me, Paul. And then you guys get to vote on what the 3rd movie is. And then we're going to watch 3 films over the month, live commentary, watch the entire movie from start to finish. If it's a 2.5-hour movie, if it's a 3-hour movie. And we're going to do this 3 times a month, and it's called 3 Course Cinema. It's very much like dinner and a movie. I want you guys to sit down with us, get your popcorn, grab a soda, grab a beer, what have you, and watch a movie with me and my friends. Yes, we already have the movies picked out for this month coming, Carpenter month. We will be watching in order. We will watch The Thing by John Carpenter. The second film we are going to watch is Prince of Darkness. And then the 3rd film, all 3 films are horror films, dude. All films we're playing. We're going to show The Thing, Prince of Darkness, and then the 3rd film we're going to show closer to late October. We're going to watch his Halloween. So we're going to review 3 John Carpenter movies. So yeah, and they're all horror films. So yeah, they are going to be horror themed. It's Carpenter made horror film, so it's perfect. We were going to do Christine, but we both actually really like Prince of Darkness. So yeah, it's going to be 3 horror films. So the whole idea with it is you guys get to watch the movie with us, and you guys get to give your opinions and that stuff on me and Paul. Now, we're not going to be looking at the chat the whole time, and Paul pretty much knows as much about movies as I do. Some of you may know him on here as Dr. Blood Money. He actually watches. He's a subscriber turned friend, but he's someone I've become very good friends with. We're very much we've become like kind of bros, like really tight. And we wanted to do this. We wanted to do DVD commentary because me and him talk so much, and he kind of helps me come up with the scripts to my videos or the ideas. So we're gonna bring in guest stars though. Occasionally we might bring in one of you guys. We're gonna bring in other people. But the whole thing is, yeah, we're just going to play the movie. We recommend you watching the movie with us live, too, if you own a copy of it, and start the movie with us, though you don't have to. And we're going to have some artwork that Paul's working on. Paul actually did all the artwork for the channel so far. He actually, the Please Rewind character you see now, he drew for me off a design that I came up with. So, yeah, we're going to work on that. So that's... I would do Escape from New York, but because it's October, I wanted to focus more on the horror films of John Carpenter's career. If we weren't talking... Because we originally were going to do a Kurt Russell trio. We were going to do Big Trouble in Little China, Escape from New York, and crap, what's the other one that he's in? The Thing. We were going to do 3 Kurt Russell movies with John Carpenter, but we decided to do 3 Carpenter horror films, you know? And that was kind of... I like that idea, too. I think the month after that, I don't know what we're doing. But you guys can throw out recommendations as it goes on. But, you know, The Thing's about an hour and 40-something minutes. You guys can watch that with us. They're not long movies. But I'll make sure to put the dates up beforehand and let you guys know when we're showing them. But we're probably going to watch them on random nights. There probably won't be a planned schedule, so you might miss some of it live. But like I said, we'll be doing the whole movies. We're going to watch 3 a month. We're going to keep that series going. 3-course cinema. So look for that to come out soon. Starting in October, we'll go into November, December. We'll see how it goes. We already have kind of the topics picked out for October, November, December. But in November and December, we want you guys to recommend what the third movie is based off the topic. So we're going to watch the first 2 movies in the month, and you guys after that tell us what third movie you guys want us to. And you guys will have to vote in the comments, and you'll have to vote on a poll. But we'll watch any film you want if it falls the category, and you guys all get to decide. So that should be a lot of fun, if you like me guys reviewing this stuff. So we got that show coming out. I'm going to do more underrated classics. I'm also thinking about starting a show called Overrated Classics, where I talk about films that I think are overrated, because I think that would be a fun opposite to what I'm doing. Who do you think would make Saw? Who do I think would make Saw? I don't know. I don't know. I don't know the time and dates, dude. I'll say this. It'll be once a week, not 1 week out of 3 weeks out of October, and we're going to try to do them on the weekends if we can. If we can't do them on the weekends, it'll be on some weekday. But I'm hoping we can do them on a Friday or a Saturday, and that's the goal. That's the best I can help you. I don't know the time and date yet. We're still figuring that out. But we will be watching The Thing very soon, coming up here in October. Yeah, I'm thinking about doing a show called Overrated Classics, because Underrated Classics is so fun to do, because I get to talk about movies I love. And I want to talk about movies that I think don't deserve the praise they get. I would love to do that. I think that would be a really fun show, just crap on famous movies. So yeah, I'm just trying to come up with shows and stuff like that. Yeah, Avatar was overrated. Although it's kind of tough to say, because everyone craps on that movie so much, it's weird to say it's overrated, because it gets a lot of hate. So I don't really include it in that in a way. Yeah, but yeah, either Friday or Saturday. We probably won't be doing them. No, we're going to do one a week. So like Friday, 1 week of October, the next week we'll do the next movie, and then the next week we'll do the next movie. We're going to do 3 films over the whole month, not in a week. So it'll be, each week there'll be a different movie. We're going to take 1 week off, just because we don't think we could do 4 weeks in the schedule and stuff like that. Oh, we both wanted to do Big Trouble in Little China so bad. We might save that for a Kurt Russell month, because originally we wanted to do it so bad. I don't think Schindler's List is overrated, no. I think Schindler's List is a great movie. I have very specific picks for what I think's overrated. My choices are very subjective. They're not as popular as some of those movies you're going to start naming, like, oh, Avatar and all that. I have very specific films I find to be extremely overrated that I want to go after. I think are like profoundly overrated in ways where they're like not the works of art that they get praised to be as such. Because some films you can just see what they're great or what's bad about them. What about the scenes that you think are overrated? What about the best scenes that you think are over? That's a good idea too. Talking about scenes I think is overrated. That's a good idea. I agree with that. I wouldn't mind. The thing is like, okay, I'll give you guys an example of what I think an overrated movie is, because that's the only way I'm gonna probably get this across. Kurt Russell year. Oh god, we're at 2.5 hours. I keep breaking my rule. God, no one's gonna watch these box office streams. Okay, so to me, an overrated movie in my mind would not be something like Schindler's List. I wouldn't consider that overrated. Or even Avatar, because I think that film gets a lot of flack now, and it just made a lot of money. That necessarily doesn't make it overrated. The reason it made money was because it had great special effects. It does have great special effects, so I don't really consider that to be an overrated movie. In my mind, I can see why people would think that. To me, I'd say an overrated film is something that would be like... God, I'm trying to figure the right pick here. So I wouldn't even say a Dark Knight, even though Dark Knight is kind of overrated. I guess for me, it would be something like something that gets praised, on as a masterpiece. Like, but it's really not this film that a lot of people make it out to be, in my eyes. Like, Wild Strawberries by Ingmar Bergman. I don't think it's as great as people make it out to be, and I would go into it into a lot of ways. I actually think The New Hope is underrated. I actually disagree with you guys. I think people underrate New Hope. Like, I think people don't get enough credit to how great a movie New Hope is. Everyone just talks about Empire anymore. Oh, Dark Knight is overrated, but that's so cliche. To me, overrated, Gladiator. Gladiator would be one I would talk about. Pretty much anything Ridley Scott made, to be honest with you. But yeah, Gladiator's one I think would count as an overrated film, where people think it's a great movie. And I would actually argue Gladiator's a bad movie. Like a really bad movie that doesn't work on any level. Wild Strawberries is a film I think Bergman already made that movie 2 or 3 times and was a lot better. I much prefer Persona. And I think people just give Wild Strawberries a pass. And it's kind of a dull movie that just repeats his themes that he already talked about before. Yeah, Gladiator's one I would do. Black Hawk Down. Like I said, I would go after any of those Ridley Scott films. Yeah, I don't like Gladiator at all. I can rip Gladiator a new butthole. I've just avoided it. I have a lot of stuff to say about Gladiator. Even from an editing standpoint, I think Gladiator's awful. I think it's got awful editing. I really do. It's just some emotionally manipulative crap. No, actually, Black Hawk Down's overrated. I actually think it's a really... Once again, I think it's a really bad movie. I know this is just my opinions. I agree. But, like, Black Hawk Down's just 2 hours of shaky cam mess that makes no sense. It has no character development. The acting's mediocre. It's just a rambling mess of a film that's completely incoherent. It's just 2 hours of the camera shaking and guns going off. There's no substance to it at all. It's a generic action film that only gets praised because the cinematography is above standard and Ridley Scott made it. If Tony Scott had made that movie... and everyone would be talking about it like that, but because Ridley Scott made it, everyone praises it. But it's just like a lot of other Jerry Bruckheimer kind of films. Yeah. Like, I'll crap on Ridley Scott all day, man. I will all day. That guy does not know how to tell a story. Even his great films, I don't give him credit for. Blade Runner and Alien, I think, are like accidents, despite him, but, I like the action scenes in Gladiator, too. That's probably the best part, is the action. Maximus is a completely ridiculous character. He's a terrible character, and the whole plot with it's so ridiculous. It's so... People give crap to Blade Runner all the time, and nobody talks... I mean, not Blade Runner. People crap on Braveheart all the time, and they never apply those same criticisms to Gladiator, even though they're the exact same issues. It's some terrible historical revisionism. It's a melodrama soap opera. It's everything that's so cheap about a Hollywood movie is in Gladiator. Gladiator features the worst elements of Hollywood movies in it. Joaquin Phoenix tries. He tries to elevate that movie with some three-dimensionality and a character. But, see, that's funny you say Dunkirk, because really, when I went into Dunkirk, I thought I was going to have that opinion. I thought Dunkirk was going to be overrated, and that everyone who was praising it was going to be wrong. And I came out of Dunkirk completely surprised that it was as good as everyone was saying. Like, I came out of Dunkirk like, wow, that was great. Like, I went in thinking I was going to go in and be like, yeah, there's not a lot of dialogue, it's overrated, it's non-linear, Nolan's done this stuff. And then I was shocked how wonderfully made it was and all the thematic stuff Nolan pulled off, and how mature the camera work was and the acting, and how he reinvented his style, basically. I mean, he took influences that I was not expecting, like old film influences, that I had no idea were going to be that good. So yeah, if anything, for me, Dunkirk surprised me. I went in, I talked to my friend about this. We both went in thinking the critics were just sucking it off and it was going to suck. And I came out of Dunkirk like, wow, that was kind of great. That was kind of really good. Like, that was everything I wanted. I don't really have any problems with that movie. See, I like Running Man quite a bit, actually. Yeah, that's the thing. I like Tony Scott a lot better than Ridley Scott overall. And that's a very contrarian opinion. A lot of people don't agree with that opinion, and I would defend Tony Scott a lot, actually. I think Tony Scott was I think Tony Scott pretty much influenced all action films in the 90s and 2000s. I think every modern... See, that's my thing, though. I don't think that's a flaw, dude. I don't think them having names or character development's a flaw. I think that's a strength of the movie. I think that's a benefit to the film. I think the film's great because it doesn't have character names. I think that would have hurt the movie, honestly. I think Nolan's biggest issue is when he overwrites characters and the character development and exposition. I think what happened brilliantly is that the characters in Dunkirk, even if he didn't intend to do it, they ended up representing ideas more than they did full characters, and those ideas were very interesting. They ended up reflecting the ideas from the movie a lot deeper than a lot of his other characters do. Harvey Dent's an overwritten character, you know? In Dunkirk, Tom Hardy's character, he doesn't need a name. He doesn't need to have a character development. That's not what the movie's trying to say, and that's not what the movie's trying to capture. When he's writing the thing about, like, how much distance he has and what he does, the actions that he chooses defines that character. You know, the characters are defined by their choices. When the son, spoiler, but when the son lies to Cillian Murphy's character, that's who his character is, and that character represents something about white lies in those moments. He doesn't need to have a name. It doesn't matter that George has a name, and the only one you hear his name is George, who's in the paper at the end. It's very intentional. I didn't want character development I didn't care about. I don't think it was about the characters, though. I think you approached it wrong, because I walked in. So when I walked into the movie, I was expecting that too, but when you watch the movie, you realize that's not what Nolan's trying to do. He's not making a character movie at all. He has no interest in it. That's not what he's doing. He's making a silent film, basically. He's making a visual film, very much like Terrence Malick. I don't really think Dunkirk has a lot of flaws. I might sound like I mean, I'll criticize him, but I think it's a subjective thing, but I think your criticisms, a lot of them don't see the movie for what it's trying to be. You're looking at a movie of what you want it to be, and you're not looking at a movie for what Nolan did, what he was executed. The film's, all of its decisions, I feel like, are 100% what Nolan wanted to do. Like, you don't have to like those decisions, but I think that was exactly the movie Christopher Nolan wanted to make. He could have made a 3-hour film with a lot more dialogue and character stuff. He didn't do that. He didn't want to make that kind of movie. I think that would have almost cheapened the movie he made. It becomes a statement, a visual statement, only in the way that cinema can make that kind of statement apart from narratives. You know, it transcends his typical plot-heavy films to become poetry. I think it's very poetic film. I think it reads like poetry. I think it's an emotional beast. I think because all the complaints I've heard about the film, I don't really get them, because I think they're viewing the film under of what it's not. They're not reviewing it as what it is as a movie, what it's trying to be. Dunkirk's trying to be one simulated experience for 1 hour and 45 minutes. That's all it's trying to be. And it's trying to create ideas and character and themes through imagery, like the plane burning at the end. I mean, that's kind of a nitpick, though, you know? Like how the kid dies on the boat. You know, little things like that. It doesn't really hurt the movie. No one said he wanted to film without even having a script. If Dunkirk was actually a documentary with action scenes in between some interviews, it would be better. I disagree with that. I think the documentary interviews would break from the simulation. I think it has to stay focused at that 1 hour and 45 minutes. I think it's like Gravity. Gravity sucks when Sandra Bullock is coming back to Earth and starts yelling to her daughter and screaming. If you cut that part out, Gravity's a pretty great movie, right? Like, it's just a survival story. Like, he just shows you through visuals characters. Like, when those guys decide things in that movie,
Like when Tommy and his friends, when Harry Styles and them, when they decide to do things in Dunkirk, they don't need dialogue. Because people wouldn't be sitting around talking on the beach when this is happening. They just make decisions to survive. I mean, Nolan made a guy trying to take a crap compelling cinema. Like, watching a guy try to take a crap is compelling in Dunkirk. I mean, it goes back to classic cinema. I mean, I haven't seen work like that in a mainstream Hollywood film in years. I mean, he went back to old expressionist films and silent films, I mean, he made it about blocking and the camera telling the story. No one's never done that in his film career. He's never had the camera tell the story. In Dunkirk, the camera's the whole story. You know, seeing them go under the pier and climb onto these boats and stuff like that. Seeing the gunshot. I mean, I thought it was so compelling, just guys sitting in a room while Germans are shooting at the boat they're in, not knowing they're in there. I think that's just compelling. You don't need dialogue. It's interesting as a filmmaking thing. It's interesting as a movie scene, apart from, you know, and I think, I don't know, I think Hans Zimmer's score, Dunkirk to me played like a Fantasia or a 2001 for me. I really did. I thought Nolan's been trying to make that movie for years and never pulled it off because of his writing. But the fact he stripped his writing away is a reason that movie doesn't have a lot of his normal flaws. It's because he did less. Because less is always more, in my opinion. And when I saw Dunkirk, I was very much reminded of Days of Heaven or something like that. You know, and I thought, yeah, he did do some of that blocking and following. I agree. Yeah, and I think Nolan is a visual director. I think people don't give him credit for that because he kind of lost that style. He went back from, you know, I didn't find it to be a cold movie. A lot of people say that. I didn't find it at all. I got very emotional during Dunkirk. I love that it wasn't a melodramatic and they didn't get small-to with it. I thought the way he handled that George kid stuff was brilliant. I really did. I thought that the way he didn't... It was a very British movie, you know? Dunkirk's a British event, and the Brits are not sentimental. Brits are not people to sit there and cry and be emotional about this. They're kind of stiff-lipped about it, and the movie has that approach. It's a British approach to a British thing. Like, Nolan made a very classic British movie. It doesn't have... I didn't feel cold at all. I thought the stuff on the boat was very moving. I thought Mark Rylance's performance was very human. I thought what ended up happening. It was like a tense, cold movie for like an hour and a half, and then I thought the last 10 minutes was an explosion of emotion. Even the score, if you go to listen to Hans Zimmer's score, it's basically building up tension for like an hour and a half, and then it releases in the last 10 minutes of the movie. It releases with an emotional explosion to make you realize until after the events are over what you really went through, which is closer to what it's like going through something. You don't really get the weight of it until the moment after. Instead of what a lot of directors would have done, which is showing you like, hey, this is a big serious moment, pay attention to it. Nolan's not doing that. He's having you just take it as it happens, and then later you're like, oh man, wow, that was a big event. I survived that. I survived that with those people. And that's what I thought was absolutely terrific about it. I thought it was terrific from a concept completely. Are you going to post what date, times these will be? Yes. Yes, I will definitely be putting up times for that. No question. God, this is like the second longest box office live stream behind the 3-hour Q&A. I totally went against my instincts this week to do a shorter video. See, I disagree. I thought the trio on the boat was the best part of Dunkirk. That's so weird you thought that was boring. I'm not saying you can't feel that way. I just didn't... I really didn't agree with that. I thought that was like... I wanted more of that. I thought that stuff was the meat of the movie. I think what made the boat stuff so good was it was so human. I love how they revealed what happened with that one guy's kid and why he was doing what he was doing. He was one of the only guys in the movie that was doing what he's doing outside of just being a survival guy. He had motivations for why he was doing what he was doing. And the way that Cillian Murphy handles that stuff is terrific. I know, the tangents are such my problem. I'm such a bad tangent guy. I really should be doing a radio show. I have no place doing YouTube videos. I do not belong to YouTube where you talk about stuff in a confined way. It's just not my place to be. I talk too much. But I thought the stuff on the boat was the best. Honestly, in my opinion, the stuff on the boat in Dunkirk was the best handled human stuff in Nolan's entire career. I really do. I think that was the most subtle human stuff Nolan's ever done as a filmmaker. I felt like throughout his whole career, all of his other stuff has felt very forced when he tries to be emotional. Like with Harvey Dent and Rachel, and all that stuff. And I don't think he did that in Dunkirk. I think in Dunkirk, it played out realistically. What it's like to be in those moments with people and what you have to do in those moments with people. I think when the boy said that thing to Cillian Murphy's character and his father looked at him and gave him a head nod, that was when that boy became a man. And his father saw it in his eyes that that boy became a man. And that's what a lot of the film is about, boys becoming men. It's about the way you deal with certain situations, the way the British deal with the situation, the way an average guy in a boat deals with the situation as opposed to a guy that's a pilot. It gives you an overarching feeling and thematic element to it. It's really what Kenneth was the one with the most lines. Yeah, exactly, right? Nolan's writing, like, yeah, you see Kenneth Branagh, what does he do? It's exposition. Nolan was better not to have dialogue and character stuff in this movie. That hurts his movies. It does. He's such a better visual director than he is that guy. Like, the best parts of Inception to me are when it's just visual and he just lets the movie happen and he doesn't explain things. He just lets it be. Like, I'm hoping with Dunkirk, Nolan goes down this path now. He's totally reinvented himself. He went, like, to Terrence Malick. Like, he said, heck, I can just tell the story visually. I don't have... Man, the most brilliant piece of visual storytelling in Nolan's whole career is in that movie. When the guy waves the hand and Tom Hardy misreads what that means. That's the best visual piece of story Nolan's ever done. It's so simple. It's genius. It's a genius thing to do. He's never been that subtle in his career. You've always known what his films mean thematically, what they mean visually. He overstates them all. He doesn't do that at all in Dunkirk. In Dunkirk, you kind of have to interpret it your own way. It's a very subjective experience. I love that about it. You kind of can put yourself into it. It's like you're there on that beach with those guys. I mean, it reminded me of like the 400 Blows or something. I felt very compelled by it. I like colder movies. I don't like emotional, sappy films. I like when movies don't try to do that. I like when they're just movies on their own. I think a big issue with a lot of modern movies are that they're too emotional and sentimental, that they don't just commit to the realism of the situation. Oh, dude, Nolan doing a Western. I am liking this idea. I like that idea a lot. I very much like Nolan making a Western. I could totally get on board with that. Nice call. Yeah, that's mainly my thing. I think, I don't know, I just felt like Dunkirk was very mature for him. I thought the fact that he left the screenplay and left all the plot stuff was actually beneficial to him as a filmmaker. I think it made him discover new things about himself that he didn't know he could do. And I don't think, I think it was the right step for his career. I think he's going to make better movies now because of Dunkirk. I think if he had stayed on the Dark Knight Rises Interstellar pattern, he might have become a hack to a lot of people. But now, now I think he's found a new energy. I think he can make, I think he's gone back to the guy that I liked when he made Prestige and Insomnia and Memento and those movies. And Batman Begins. I loved his early work so much. It was somewhere around Dark Knight. He got very heavy with exposition and overstating his themes and too much plotting. Too much in movies. He started overstuffing all of his films around Dark Knight. And you started to see that pattern. But Dunkirk, he went back to basics. I think he kind of had to reinvent his style and discover how to make a movie simple again. So then, now hopefully his next film, he could do something really great and really ambitious and do something he hasn't really done thing. They're emotionally manipulative. Exactly. I don't mean emotional like they're literally emotional. I mean they're sappy. They're very melodramatic anymore. They don't earn their emotions. Guardians of the Galaxy 1's a perfect example of that. That movie has points where the characters just say their character development. They just have someone go, "We're family now. We're friends." And I think I don't like that. I didn't want Tom Hardy to have a heroic speech. I didn't want the characters in Dunkirk to talk about their lives or like what they did before. I don't want that stuff. I'm sick of that stuff. It doesn't work. For me, it pulls me out of the movie every time because it feels like a writer or a producer's adding that. Real life's a lot quieter. Real life is a lot more... when screwed up stuff happens in real life, people don't talk about it right away for like a half hour. They experience it while it's happening. And pure cinema doesn't really... Pure cinema's kind of like... That's what it's trying to capture. And I'm not saying every pure cinema film's good. There's a lot of bad ones, but... Jonathan's a very talented guy. Westworld's definitely made me think a lot higher of him. He's a good director. That, like, those episodes he directed on Westworld were, like, awesome. He's got a great eye. I didn't know Jonathan Nolan was such a good director. I think he's the weaker writer out of the two of them. But I was shocked how good, See, I disagree. I don't think Nolan's better when his brother works with him. In fact, if you go look at his best movies outside of Memento, Jonathan didn't really work on them. I like Inception more than Dark Knight and Dark Knight Rises and stuff. I like Prestige. Well, Prestige did have Jonathan. I take that back. Prestige is pretty great. But, like, I don't think Jonathan contributes as much. I think he contributes a lot to the structure and narratives. Nolan, you could see when he writes a screenplay he wrote Memento by himself pretty much. He wrote most of that screen. When he writes the script by himself, he's more analytical than his brother. I feel like a lot of that melodramatic crap comes from Jonathan. I feel like a lot of the stuff I don't like in The Dark Knight and Dark Knight Rises comes from Jonathan Nolan. I really do. I think that's Nolan writing that way. I don't think it's Chris. Because Chris doesn't do that stuff in his other movies. Memento doesn't have that crap in it. See, I disagree. I think Christopher Nolan alone's terrific. I totally disagree. I think Jonathan's work on Interstellar really hurt that movie. I think his original script sucked that he wrote for Spielberg, and I think Christopher Nolan tried to make that script into something, and he couldn't do it. And I think Jonathan's a big reason that Dark Knight Rises and Dark Knight have a lot of the issues they do. Even Batman Begins, Jonathan Nolan didn't do much on that script. Basically, what happened with Batman Begins was David Goyer wrote the script, and then Nolan came in and did a rewrite, and then Jonathan added some ideas. But Jonathan didn't really have much input, and I think Batman Begins has a much better script than both The Dark Knight and The Dark Knight Rises. By far, actually, I'd say Batman Begins has the best script. He wrote the original story that Memento was based off of, but Christopher wrote the whole script by himself pretty much. Jonathan just got a screenwriting credit because he wrote the story it was based off of. He kind of came up with the idea, but like 90% of that movie was written by Nolan. Like, Jonathan didn't write any dialogue or any of the stuff in it. That was all Chris. Inception was all Chris Nolan. I don't think Jonathan Nolan would have added anything good to Inception at all. I don't think he would have contributed anything. And his TV work, you know, I like Persons of Interest and I like Westworld, but he fits in that format. He writes out... See, the problem with Jonathan when he works with Christopher is that John Nolan writes stuff in those movies that works better on TV because it plays out. Nolan knows how to write a script that kind of works better as a 3-act in a film. I think Jonathan comes in and adds a little bit too much to the screenplays. Prestige, I don't think suffers from that because it's based off a book, and I think the book is really what helps. Because that book is an amazing book, and Jonathan and him knew the script of that. But I don't think Jonathan as an original screenwriter is very good. His Interstellar script really sucks. Like, it's bad. And a lot of his other, like, I basically think his brother made him look better. You know, I think his brother really elevated him and got him the work. But like I said, I think he's doing really good on Westworld. He's actually become a very good director. So I think Jonathan needs to break away from Chris because he's not getting to be his own guy. He's got to stop living in the shadow of his brother. He's got to go become his own guy like he did with Westworld, because then he'll never have his own thing. Yeah, I know. I just said Memento was Jonathan's idea. I literally just said it like 3 minutes ago. It was based off a short story he wrote. That's where it came from. Then Nolan wrote the screenplay off the short story idea. Yeah. Yeah, I know that. Yeah, I said that. Jonathan Nolan. Yeah, he came with that idea, and that's about it. I like Westworld too. Like I said, I think Jonathan Nolan belongs on TV. I don't think he's a film guy. I don't think he's very good at writing a film screenplay. I think he knows a lot more about how to write. Like, think about Dark Knight if it had been an 8-hour TV show. It actually makes a lot more sense with that screenplay. With Harvey Dent and a lot of that. It really does. And so does, you know, Dark Knight Rises needed to be a much longer movie. It had too much in it. I think Jonathan's really good at long-form storytelling. I think he's proven that. I think Nolan, on the other hand, is a little bit more understanding of the immediate that you need to add to a movie. And I think Jonathan's biggest lacking in his whole career has been that. I think he's a TV guy, which that's a whole different art on itself, is to be a TV writer. That means you have to write stuff going on weeks and weeks. I think Jonathan's really good at that. I don't think he's as good at that as a TV show. Oh, it's okay. No, I was confused. I was about to say, didn't I just say that? You saw that movie? Yeah, I saw Westworld. I've seen Westworld a bunch of times. I read the book too, Michael Crichton. Did he make that a book? I don't know if that was... I swear I read a book of Westworld, but maybe not. I think it was just a movie. Maybe I read the screenplay. I think I read a published screenplay. That's right. Because I've read everything Michael Crichton wrote, but I do think it was a screenplay. But so I do very much like yeah, I like Westworld. I do think it's a lot of people involved, though. Clearly, Abrams, some of the other writers, but Jonathan's doing fine work. But you know, I really agree. Yeah, that's my thing with Dark Knight. I think Dark Knight's a great example of a film that's got too much going on in it for 2.5 hours. It's got too much. It's not focused enough to be a 2.5 hour movie. There's so much stuff going on in Dark. It's like, God, this needs another 2 hours just to flesh this shit out. In my opinion, I think that was the issue with Interstellar. It was too much movie. I think it was overwritten. Jonathan Nolan wrote a screenplay that for Interstellar that needed to be like 6 hours worth of stuff just to go into all of it. And you can't even make a 3 hour movie out of that. It's just too much. It's too ambitious. He can do that with Westworld because he's going to get seasons to tell his story. But imagine if Jonathan Nolan had to write a Westworld screenplay that was 2 hours. I don't think it would work. I think you have to do it as a TV series. I think that's where his strength is. Where I think without Jonathan Nolan's finding his filmmaking music, and he's learning how to be a director again, how to be a visual storyteller. He's not learning to be he's not learning to rely on the dense plotting and labyrinth screenplays. He's relying now on his filmmaking prowess, which he should. He should rely on that. That's what Nolan needs to grow from. So I think Nolan's just going to get better from here. I think Nolan's going to make I think he's going to become a better version of what Terrence Malick sadly turned into. But I think he's going to make, you know, this reminded me of The Thin Red Line. I think he has a Days of Heaven in him. I think he has a Badlands in him. I can't wait. I love the Western idea. I think he'll make a killer Western. Yeah, I'd like to see Nolan do a horror movie. I'd like to see him do one of those. I think he'd actually be terrific at doing a horror film. So yeah, I'm just a fan. You know, some people don't like Dunkirk. Some people don't like Nolan. I think Dunkirk was great, and I think it's Nolan's probably second or third best movie in my opinion. Like if I had to rank his films, I would go like Memento, The Prestige, Dunkirk. That's how I'd probably look at it right now. And then I'd go like Inception, and Batman Begins, probably in that order, is how I would say Nolan's career. And then Insomnia, and then Dark Knight, and then, well, that makes sense. And if you don't like Terrence Malick, that might explain a lot, because this was very much a Terrence Malick-esque movie, especially his older work. Nolan's not going to do Bond unless they do a reboot. He's not going to take that franchise. I want to see Danny Boyle's James Bond. Am I the only one who wants to see Danny Boyle do it? I think Dunkirk's his most experimental mainstream movie. I'm kind of shocked it's making this much money. Like honestly, like I can get why Inception made money because of the spectacle, even though it was very intricate and all of that. I'm kind of shocked Dunkirk's this huge hit, because it's very much an experimental art film. It's not a blockbuster. It's like a silent movie and stuff like that. It's crazy. I mean, I'm shocked it caught on. Like, I don't know how that happened. Can you write a good script even if you aren't any good at writing dialogue? Well, that depends on the kind of movie you're writing, I'd say. I mean, if you're not writing a movie that's the basis of its dialogue, but the plot and structure, then I think you can write a good screenplay and then get somebody to punch up the dialogue. Some screenplays are driven by dialogue. I mean, it really depends on the kind of writer you are. I think you can, though. Plenty of films and stories. You can have scripts that are, you know, there's a lot of scripts when you originally read them. They're very much the plot and structure and the action, and they're not always the lines. A lot of times some movies have... Goodfellas, for example. Goodfellas is like 70% improvisation. Joe Pesci improvised... And that movie won an Academy Award for its screenplay. Like Goodfellas won an Academy Award, and most of the movies improvised, you know? Or wait, that didn't win. It was nominated, I think. I'm not sure if it did win for screenplay. My bad. Joe Pesci won. Never mind. It was not. But like Nicholas Pizzetti and Martin Scorsese, they didn't write most of that movie. They took a book that was real stories, and all the stuff in the movie is real. For the most part, they're real stories. And then the actors improvised, and yet that film is considered one of the greatest screenplays of all time. And I'm sure that screenplay wasn't that long. It was probably very much just the plot points. And I feel the same way. Usual Suspects is another film. Christopher McQuarrie, he basically just wrote out the structure, And if you see Kevin Pollak's show with him, they all talk about out there how the actors improvised half that movie. Some of the most quotable dialogue from The Usual Suspects was from the actors, you know. But he wrote that original structure in the screenplay. Scripts more serve as like the blueprint for the movie. Not every screenplay is like David Mamet and Quentin Tarantino where everything's written out in detail. Some screenplays are just like the foundation, and then you build from that. So I do think you can write a good screenplay if you can't write dialogue. If you have a story that's worth telling, and the way you want to tell that story is interesting. Oh, Beasts of No Nation. Yeah, Beasts of No Nation, man. If you haven't seen it, one of the best films of the last 10 years. Cary Fukunaga. Great movie. It's hard. It's a hard watch. Like, I never want to rewatch it. It's a tough watch. But Beasts of No Nation, I think, is one of the best films made in the last 10 years. Easily, actually. I think it's one of the most impressive films. The fact that Cary wrote it, directed it, did the cinematography, he made it for $6 million, and it's one of the single best war films I've ever seen. It's one of the best films about childhood I've ever seen. I mean, it reminded me of, like, the 400 Blows or something. I mean, I was blown away by, or Ivan's Childhood, by Tarkovsky. It reminded me of that. I think Beasts of No Nation's a little masterpiece. I have nothing but praise for that movie. So that's one I'd recommend. That's about it, though, off the top of my head. I don't think a lot of the Netflix original movies are that good. That film kind of sets you up that, like, it's going to be better than it is. But then the Netflix originals really haven't been able to follow that up. Oh, we're at 3 hours, guys. This is officially the longest box office stream. Good job. Good job, guys. I'm going to turn off all casual viewers. Yay! I even have people tell me all the time, like, they think it's advice I don't think about. I get it constantly if someone says to me, a friend will message me and go, man, you shouldn't do those box office streams so long. They shouldn't be 3 hours. They should be like 40 minutes. You talk about most of the stuff in an hour and then just rant. And they go over and over again and tell me, it's like, well, yeah, I never thought of that. Yeah. I never thought about just doing it as a video and not as a live stream and making it shorter. Thanks for telling me something that I thought about the first time I did it. Awesome. And I used to do it that way. Go back to Pat's box office weekend box office report, my old videos. They were like 20 minutes. But I guess I do need to end this. This is 3 hours. It's getting kind of ridiculous. I planned on this for being like an hour at the longest, and it's gone on 2 hours more. This is an insane... I can't believe we got... This is crazy. Alright, guys. Thank you for watching this episode of Box Office Addict. I appreciate it. And I love you guys. I love interacting with you guys in the chat. I love talking about this stuff live. Once again, let's summarize. Despicable Me, big hit. Dunkirk, hit. Annabelle, hit. Spider-Man, massive. Highest grossing debut film for a character. Or Stronger, not that great opening. Hitman's Bodyguard, doing great worldwide. Mother, bomb. Home Again, doing American Assassin, The Lego Ninja Movie, mediocre opening weekend. It, killing it. Kingsman, okay. But not that much better than the first film. We'll have to see how it holds up in the second weekend to really get a good judge of what this is. Went long here. Sorry for those of you who just tuned in to hear the box office report and don't want to hear me talk about all this gossip and all these things. But I'll try to cut it down next week a lot shorter. Actually, let's see. I'll try to make this a lot shorter next week. I say that every week, but I think last week we only went to like an hour and 40 minutes. The last couple of weeks. This is way longer than your typical one, but this kind of was a Q&A too. I answered a lot of questions, so we'll look at it that way. But I'll play the outro music for you guys, and I appreciate it. All music that I play here comes from Sharkfoot_. Please go subscribe to his channel. He's a friend of mine. He does the music for me, and I don't know. Anyway, we look at the box office to see the patterns of where Hollywood's at and where it's going. We look at it to see how it affects the mainstream, what kind of films are going to get made. We look at it to see how reviews affect things, how cinema scores, public opinion, marketing, release dates. There's a lot of reasons we look at the box office, but the reason we do it for the most part is that we just love talking movies, and that's really the heart of it. And it gives you a great format and a place to do so. Even if it starts in a very analytical way, it does turn into something I think that is a little bit deeper week to week, and you guys make me rethink stuff that I didn't really think, and it helps me talk this stuff out in more detail than I normally would if I was just going to make a video where I have to write a script or improvise most of it. I don't know. I like the radio show format. We just need some more listeners, but we'll do it together.